Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iturrate, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy. Okay, everybody, welcome back. Getting ready to have a great deep dive. Super excited. Yves Edwards, great interview. But before that, letting you guys know, I will be in San Diego here August 28th, Pancrase Seminar, Josh Barnett. It's going to be interesting time. So if you're out that way, come learn how to do some Pancrase. What do you guys got going on?
I got September 18th, World Grappling Classic in Tampa, Florida. You can sign up through Smooth Comp. I'll be there. And then the World Grappling Classic will also be at the Olympiad the following month in Orlando. Closing on a couple deals right now, but as of right now, I'm hosting two grappling events, both in Florida, September and October.
And I just wanted to give a shout out to 50 Fight Club member Dennis Holman. It seems that out in the Washington area in the Great Northwest, he's reopened his gym, Victory Athletics. Tuesday, Thursday nights are kids' nights. Bring your people down there, roll around. To be honest with you, I think from that generation, Holman is really one of the more technical guys and one of the best teachers hands-on that you can find. So if you're in the Northwest, take advantage of it. Victory Athletics, look him up, Dennis Holman.
All right,
and,
so
but I'm excited about Yves Edwards.
Yves Edwards, one, this is going to be a fantastic interview for sure. The issue that we have is he's got so many fights that a lot of the questions that we normally kind of volley with, we're not going to be able to get to them. But I think it's going to open up to a part two. So what we need you guys to do at home, like, share, subscribe. We've got a very dedicated audience, and the only way for us to expand is by your help. I mean, we're doing everything we can on our end. We legitimately need some help to get the show out there.
I can't wait for this interview, Yves. When I was fighting back then, really starting the UFC, he was up there, and he was, without a doubt, the best 155-pounder in the world for a time. So
for sure,
I want to hear what he thinks about that, man.
Yep. So without further ado, Yves Edwards.
All right, welcome back, Lights Out podcast fan members and people who are just tuned in. I don't know. Deep dive right here. Super excited about this one. One of my favorite guys to be on the card with, but not really. By that, I mean, I wasn't happy when he was on there because a lot of times I'm like, you're trying to take my bonus, you son of a. So, and that happens sometimes. We'll get into it in a little bit, but guy's been fighting forever. One of the guys I love hanging out with, nothing but positive energy. Yves Edwards. Yves, how you doing, brother?
I am awesome, Chris. I appreciate that introduction too, because you have nothing but positive energy. But like, I feel like I have this reputation for being an angry little black guy.
No, man. Dude, when I was around you, always I love being around you. Always had a smile, even like when you were cutting weight. Like, I only got 8 pounds ago. I'm like, damn, 8 pounds, that's a lot. But always in a good mood. And I didn't like it though. Sometimes when you I remember this. And we're gonna get into it later. But one of your best knockouts ever. I'm in the back and I'm warming up, and you're going against Josh, and you spun around and you kicked him and knocked him out. And I remember I turned to my guys like, I gotta go for something else, man. I get no knockouts there. Beautiful.
Bonus is gone.
Yeah, I was like, okay, check that one off. We got to go for something like that. It's just like,
gotta hit a fancy submission or something.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. Stuff like that went through my head sometimes. Like, I would make some money. It was just amazing to me. It blows my mind when I think about, like, right after that stuff. They're like, well, we don't really have a 55-pound champ. If it would have been, thinking. And how great, those are some of the best fights out there now. 55-pounders, 45-pounders, 35. Like, they were trying to do away with them at one point. Yeah. And that's one reason I never went down. It's like, they're trying to get rid of those weight classes.
Yeah. It's good to see those weight classes thrive now. A lot of those guys, a lot of those 135-pounders, they fought at 55. The older guys like say Dominic Cruz. He was one of the young guys when we were in our primes, So Uriah, they had some fights at 155, but I'm glad that they were able to usher in the 35 and 45-pound weight classes and build that division, man. Those guys, like, 135 pounds might be the deepest, if not the second deepest division in the sport right now.
Yeah, for sure. So, Yves, I'm going to be honest with you. Your record is incredibly intimidating. So I've taken kind of like a microscopic look at it, and you've caused me lots of nights of not being able to sleep because your record is so immense. Like I'd get like, I think I'd be halfway through it, and it was like a quarter, and I'm like, oh, because there's just so much. Your body of work is. I could skip a lot of fights because maybe they weren't, they weren't as competitive as one would want, but you don't have that in your record. Like, it's not a padded record. Like, your record is just stud after stud after stud. And it starts, at least the first fight that I could find is October 26, 1997, World Pancration Championships against Todd Justice. Is this your first actual MMA bout?
No, that was my second professional bout. I can't remember the guy's name. His name was Corey something, and it's in a highlight video, just the finish of the fight. Much bigger black guy, tall. He's probably outweighed me by like 30 pounds or so. But, this was Texas back in the day, you know. There's really no. I mean, the boxing commission really didn't have anything to say to us for a few years. It wasn't really sanctioned into action, but we could do it. So I fought this guy who was a little bigger than me, choked him out because he didn't know anything about the ground. Yeah, it was good. Leg kicked him a bit, but that was my first fight. Corey something, but I don't remember. It's too long ago.
Now Mike jumped right in. Go to the fights. Can you tell us real quick, what was your background? Were you a kickboxer? Were you a jiu-jitsu guy? How did you get started into this sport?
Man, I got started at 3 years old and I saw Enter the Dragon, you know. No, I'm serious, man. It's like 1979, 1980, and my uncle comes home, my teenage uncle comes home, you know, he takes one of his paychecks and buys a Betamax cassette player. And he comes home with Superman and Enter the Dragon. And I'm like, I'm watching those movies and like I'm like, this is no bullshit. I'm 3 years old. And there's a scene where John Saxon, he's on his back and he does a kip up to his feet, you know? And I'm like, I just saw it on TV and I'm screaming, I could do that. Mom was like, you can't do that. And so I get on the floor and I do it, you know? But like, I see that movie and I want to be like Bruce Lee at 3 years old. I want to be like Superman and Bruce Lee. But then like a couple years later, I find out like superheroes aren't real, Superman, and then on top of that, Superman's an alien, so his powers come from the sun, and nobody can really do that. So like ever since then, I've been like, fuck that guy, Batman all the way, you know. So I wanted to be like Batman and Bruce Lee growing up, and I think that's what got me into the sport, man. I've been around martial arts my whole life, traditional martial arts, karate, and I did when I first moved to Texas. I was was like 15 years old when I got there, and in high school, I found this kung fu school up the street from my school, and I started training there, traditional kung fu, doing all the forms, praying mantis style, and that was it for me. And then I saw the first UFC while I was in high school. You know, I was always in the martial arts movies, I was watching all the Jackie Chan movies, Cynthia Rothrock and all these. And then what happened was, the first UFC came out and I saw it on tape. I saw the ad in the thing and it was like kickboxing versus judo versus karate versus kung fu. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to watch that. I begged my dad to order it. I was like, here's the money. It's $20. It's like, here's the money for the baby. Please get it. Please get it. And then Jason DeLuca was in it and he was praying mantis kung fu, which is what I did. And then, you know, the first couple of fights was Hoyce and Jimerson and then some other guys, and they all end up wrestling, grappling. And I didn't understand any of that at 17 years old. 16, 17 years old. And then Jason DeLucia comes out and he does what I do. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to see some spinning kicks, some cool shit, blah, blah. And he threw one wheel kick. And then some scramble happened. He get the guy's back and he chokes him. And I'm like, I guess that wrestling stuff matters. It works. So that got me interested. And I just started watching all the fights I can get my hands on then. K1, the first K1 came out, I saw it advertised as 80% knockouts. And then I watched it, it was like 5 fights and 4 of them were knockouts. I was like, I guess they didn't lie. And but like I was just real geeked on and watched everything I can get my hands on, watched all the rest of the UFCs as they came out. I wanted to train. I went back home to the Bahamas. A friend of mine, his little brother, He comes out. We're in his yard. This is a kid I used to be cool with in the Bahamas. When we went to Texas, we stayed in touch. When we went back home, his little brother, we were playing basketball. His little brother goes inside. His mom's like, Chris, come inside, get your stuff. We got to go to class. And I'm like, where's he going? He comes back out dressed in this uniform. I'm like, where are you going? He's like, I'm going to my ninjutsu class. I'm like, but you know, ninjas in the Bahamas, you know? So
he's hating on a kid for trying, man.
Right? But like, I was like, I got to see this. I got to see this. He's like, no, we do some of that stuff like what they do in the UFC and chokes. And I was like, no, you don't. And so I went over there to the school, and it's like, I just turned 18, and this 14-year-old kid, I was like, oh, this is cool. Can I try it? They let me in. My uncle took me, and he signed the waiver for me. And this 14-year-old kid rear naked choked me, you know? And I was like, I'm going to learn how to do that. That's what I'm going to do. And that was the beginning of it for me, man. I came back to Texas. I got my green card, my first job, and my first paycheck went to Mosul Self-Defense Academy to get me in the gym, start training. So I started with like Jeet Kune Do. Now, that's the longest story in the world to tell you. I started, you know.
No, but that's awesome. Let me ask you really fast a little bit about the Texas scene that you arrived to, because you had Marcel. Obviously, I remember meeting him when you fought for me first, but there was a hot scene down there. You had like Paul Jones, Steve Nelson. You know, eventually Heath Herring came out of there.
Tony Ponte.
Tony Torres had that local feel. We knew Tony, you know, from Aaron fighting before that. So there was Texas was a hotbed, even though there wasn't really boxing commission involvement and stuff. Talk about their influence on you, or if you felt them, or if you were all on your own at Marcel's.
You know, Texas is so big. It was crazy, man. Like Evan Tanner and Heath Herring and those guys, they were out in West Texas, you know, and it was so far away. I didn't know about those guys until probably 1999, 1998. The Underground, you know, the UG, you know, all the names on there, and I was like, I hearing about these guys in El Paso and Amarillo, and I'm like, all right, well, and then finding out, like at first I was like, oh man, I want to fight these guys. Then find out they're heavyweights. I'm like, all right, cool. I was like, all right, cool.
What about Travis Luter? Was he around there?
Travis Luter was up in Dallas. Yeah, he was not very far away, and he was on the jiu-jitsu scene, one of Carlos Machado's you know, high level guys, and some of my friends, well, some guys who I eventually became friends with were going up there and training with those guys. But like I heard so much about Luter, but like Texas is so big, man. Houston and Dallas, like it's I guess it's not. I've been in the Northeast for a while now, you know, and you guys travel. Well, not you guys. You guys are in the North Midwest, but the guys up in the Northeast, they travel so much, like Connecticut, New Jersey, New York. Yeah. People make those drives very often, take the train. And Texas is like 4.5 hours from Houston to Dallas. And I wasn't making that trip very often. I had good, I had good training down in Houston. And I was also, at the time, I was kind of dumb because I was very anti-gi. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm not going up to Dallas to put on pajamas. I can do that here, you know. So, but I did have a good sense of Travis Luter and those guys up in Dallas, man. And Travis Luter, he was killing it back then. So, like, we were just all separate. Houston hates Dallas.
Really?
Like, it's kind of weird. Like, where sports are concerned, Houston and Dallas are like, fuck you, you know. Like,
I heard everybody hates Austin. Is that true?
Everybody hates Austin, but everybody wants to go to Austin. You know,
okay.
Austin's like, it's the cool place to hate, but like it's also the cool place to be. It's like an island inside of Texas.
They say the jiu-jitsu scene there isn't anywhere near as like popular or advanced as other areas of Texas.
It definitely wasn't when I lived in Houston and when I lived in Austin. The jiu-jitsu scene wasn't very big. There's no real high-level guy that was in, like, there was no black belt, no Brazilian or Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt in Austin when I was coming up. And then when like I was there was just a few guys. Literally the best guys in that area were when I lived there last was myself, Tim Kennedy, Andrew Craig, and Colton Smith. You know?
Okay, those are pretty good names. Pretty good names.
But like that was it.
So
by the way, Eve, I've never owned a gi in my life, so I'm with you on that. Don't worry about it.
Oh, man, I've been training with Master Lloyd Irving, and he made me put on gi. And, it's good. I've learned the benefits of it, but I still hate hurting my fingers, man. Like I don't want to have to keep with my fingers. So I still dread putting it on.
Your first 2 documented fights, we talked about Todd Justice, and you got in and out of that fight through naked choke. Your next one is for the World Pancration Championship as well against Joe Hurly. Who was the promoter of that event? I could not find anything on it.
All right, so here's how that worked out. That was Guy Metzger's show.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah. And so
I can see that.
The first fight that I had, the guy, I forget his name, Corey was his first name. Guy saw me fight that fight. And what, I don't know if this is true, but what my coach at the time said to me was that Guy thought that like all I could do was kick. I didn't know anything. So he put me in there with Todd Justice, right? Who was one of his students. The locker room was red and blue. Lions Den was the red locker room. We were the blue locker room. And everybody in the Lions Den locker room was the way it went. Like it was, I think it was 10 fights. I was the first fight out of my locker room. I was the only guy out of our locker room to win. everybody else from the Lions Den won their fight. And that's when I beat Todd Justice. And then the next time around, I think the commission was involved a little bit more. So, and I think they made them switch it up because I think it looked bad, you know? So I think
it's a traditional boxing show, like the blue corner special. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So they changed it up and they put different guys in different corners. And that fight with Joe Hurly, man,
he's tough.
Hurly, he was tough. He was tough back then. And like we had a good one. He edged it out. He won. There was I wasn't as confident as I needed to be. I'm not saying I would have beat him if I was confident then. I was still very young in the game. I didn't have the level of training partners that he had at the time, but like he won the fight fair and square. There was some instances where I felt good, but just
he's also another Lions Den guy.
Yes.
So essentially, what you're describing is it's Lions Den, and everybody else is getting brought in to pad their record.
Yeah.
Feed the Lions.
So how much did you get paid for that Joe Hurly fight? Future WEC and King of the Cage veteran.
Oh man, we're talking a long time ago, and I maybe
$100,
maybe $500, maybe.
Really? Did you? So some of the people
paid well.
Paid.
Right?
Some people had to pay to fight at this time. You didn't fall into that category, huh?
I did some of the Bushy Bond tournaments, and like you had to pay to fight those. It was like what, like $40. So I paid those. It was kind of weird because you could do like MMA and you could still do that at the same time in Texas, you know. So I don't know.
Now, back then was it MMA? Because back in the 90s when I would fight, they'd call it NHB. Do you want to fight NHB? You know, no holds barred. So I was like, yeah, I want to fight NHB.
Yep.
MMA, what the hell is that?
Yeah, MMA didn't come around until like what, 2000, 2001. We were fighting like in the 90s. So like
NHB.
NHB. My old boxing coach used to say, and he couldn't even no bars hold. He could never get it right. You know? But yeah, it was kind of nuts. And then back then in Texas, like there was no closed fists. You know, it was all open hand.
Really?
Pancrase rules. So there were no elbows allowed and no closed fist to the face. Nothing above the neck. Closed fist. So yeah, we had to. I used to, and that was cool for me because. Like as I said, when I saw the first UFC, I started getting anything I could watch, anything I could find, I'd watch it. I ended up watching so many Pancrase videos, you know. There was this fight with Vernon White in one of the Pancrase matches that I was watching, and he was losing, he was getting handled. He grabbed the ropes twice, you know, and then you remember you could grab the ropes to get out of a submission.
Rope escapes.
Yeah, I know. So like he had no more rope escapes, and then in the end of the fight, he just put a combination together, lit this dude up. And I'm laying on my couch. And like, I'm watching that. And as soon as that happened, I roll off of my couch to my knees and I'm like, God, please let me have fights like that. Please, please, please let me have fights like that when I start fighting. You know, so like I was watching Pancras, and then I'm a professional. This is when I was like 17, 18. And like now I'm fighting at 20, 21. And I got Pancras rules. So like every fight, like even with the Joe Hurly fight, we're fighting Pancras rules. We're wearing the shin guards and whatnot. I'm like, I'm losing this fight, but I can win it. I can win it. But I just never got that moment that was able to put it away from me.
Okay, so
yeah,
so Yves is describing a situation where unless you join Guy Mesger's gym, you're coming in as an opponent every single time you fight for him. So that's January 16th of 1998. On June 12th, 1998, sometime in between that period, something happens in your life and career where it goes down a completely different path. Like on this podcast, we always talk about leveling up in discipline and how important it is. You fight at a Texas regional event against Tim Horton, and Bas Rutten is in your corner. And it's not one of those, I met Bas Rutten, he held the pads. Bas Rutten was a huge, like he was so proud of you, before the event, during the event, and even afterward, the little footage I could find. When did you start training with him, and can you please describe your relationship?
For sure. One thing, Mike, like a lot of people do this because of the way my name is spelled, so they try to pronounce it.
It's Yves Edwards.
It's just Yves, yeah. Yves.
So, I knew that actually. Sorry.
It's all good. Like, it's good.
Embarrassing.
So here's the thing with Bas.
25 years ago, he had the same conversation with me.
Yeah, I have to do it with everybody because like they're not used to it, But so where Bas is concerned, this oh man, this is a fun story. So Bas emails Tim Mosel, my coach at the time, and he's coming to Texas, and he's coming to Texas to do a seminar, and he's going to be at this event. Bas Rutten, I was watching Pancras videos. Like I said, I'm watching Pancras videos. Bas was one of the guys who I was like, that guy's the bomb. Like Bas Rutten and Pele Lande at the time were like two of my heroes. Right? So, my coach tells me like, yeah, he's like, hey, guess who emailed me today? I was like, who? He's like, Bas Rutten. I was like, are you serious? Like, yeah, he's coming to town. Are you serious? And I'm so excited, right? So like, I'm like, man, could you ask him if I could email him and just ask him about some techniques and this and that? And so he's like, yeah, I'll ask him. So he gives me Bas' email the next day. I write Bas, and Bas is like, yeah, I'm coming to town. There's these fights and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. I was like, man, that'd be so awesome. Like, oh man, I'm supposed to fight in Dallas that same night. Like, oh, I'm going to miss it. And then I start thinking, I talk to my roommates, and then I'm like, I call the promoter in Dallas. His name is Buddy Albin. He's the guy I fought the Corey guy for. And he after the fight, like he made it a hard time for me to get paid. Right. So I wasn't feeling it. So my thing was I called him and I was like, hey man, I'm not coming up there. I don't feel like fighting. I don't feel good. So I go to the arena where Bas is going to be, and they're having the rules meeting, and I just take my gear. And this is how Texas was back. This is like 99, 98. So this is how Texas was back then. I go in there with all my gear, and I'm like, hey, man, if somebody doesn't have an opponent, I'll fight them tonight, So I just walk into the rules meeting, announce that, and then I leave, right? And
so wait. You challenged the locker room. That's what you did.
Yeah,
you gotta make it like a Hammer House story.
If somebody doesn't have one, and then my roommate rolls up on me, he's like, hey man, you see the guy you're fighting? I'm like, no. He's like, bro, he's huge. He's like 6'2", like 225. He's jacked. And I was like, okay. And Bas is like, hey Yves, man, you go out there and you fight and you win, I'm gonna be like, yeah. You fight and you lose, I'm gonna be like, yeah. People, they don't know what it means to get in there. They don't understand. So you just go do your thing, So this is the first time I'm meeting Bas Rutten. I'm super excited about it. And my whole thing is like, I'm gonna get to fight in front of Bas Rutten. I don't care if the guy is 300 pounds and a jiu-jitsu black belt. I'm fighting in front of Bas Rutten tonight. And so I'm out there with Tim Horton. And the rules were there's supposed to be no closed fist to the head, right? Because we're in Texas and this is Pancras rules. But this guy hits me a couple of times. like I'm not a rule breaker. Even if you break the rules, I'm not one of those guys who's like 2 wrongs make a right. Like I'm a southpaw, so 3 lefts do. You know what I mean? So it's like he hit me a couple of times. The ref stops it. I got a little cut, and he's checking it out. The refs, I'm like, I'm good to go. But I'm just beating up his legs with kicks, just blasting his legs with kicks. And Bas is in my corner. He's cheering me on the whole time. So I'm getting super excited. I'm dropping this guy with leg kicks and whatnot. And just finally, and then we clinch up a couple of times. I drive with some knees into his body. And my roommate's in the corner screaming, kick him in the head, kick him in the head. And Tim Moses is like, punch him in the fucking face. Like, this guy's hitting me, you know? So, anyway, the guy quits, and then Bas jumps up into the ring and scoops me up onto his shoulders. And he's like you said, he's like really proud. And I'm super excited because like I'm on the shoulders of one of my heroes right now.
Hero.
You know? And he's running me around the cage. He takes me over to Tim Horton on his shoulders. He's like, nana nana boo boo. And he just trots me around the cage. And like Marco Ruas is there too, you know. Who's another guy I looked up to. And I get to fight in front of these guys, and I have a performance against a much bigger guy, and I get to stop this guy, make this guy quit. So, like for me, man, that was a highlight. That was one of the highlights of my career for sure.
For sure.
Now,
so
did that just make you like your confidence just swell up? Do you feel like I can beat anybody now? I got these people's attention. What'd that do for your confidence, brother?
Bro, like the confidence boost out of that was immense. You know what I mean? And the crazy part about it was it didn't just slam into me because it wasn't like Bas was like, all right, great job. And then he just took off. You know what I mean? Like him and Marco were there. We went to an after party. Your dad Seven was at the after party also. And like, it was kind of funny because Bas, you know, let me back up just a little bit. We're at the arena and Bas is drinking a Heineken, right? And he's walking around drinking his Heineken. And this cop comes up to him and the cop's like, hey man, you're gonna have to get rid of that beer. And Bas is like, this beer? He's like, yeah. Bas goes, right? And like the cop is pissed now. But like Bas is like, that's what we do in Holland. The cop says, get rid of the beer. You just finish it and then you're rid of it, right? So and then we go to this after party and Bas has been drinking a lot all night. And Dan Seven's in there. And like it's weird because like him and Marco seemed like they were trying to instigate something to get Dan Seven to like puff up his chest towards them, you know. But we had a good time, man. We hung out with him that night, and then the next day we went to this water park, and I'm like, I'm this kid that grew up watching these 2 guys, and like now I have their respect because they see that like I'm not just because Chris, you've been there, you know. There's a bunch of guys who say they ask you to corner them, they see you at an event, they're like, hey man, will you corner me? And you corner them, and they don't belong in the cage. You know, so yeah. Like when like Bas was like, he cornered me for this one, and he gave me advice before, after, during, and man, he became like he let me be his friend. You know, I became his friend that night, and like genuinely, I became his friend, man. I could tell you some stories about Bas, like after that event that just like that blow my mind. Like I was in my first trip to LA, I went out there and. Call him on a Sunday. And I was like, hey man, my coach asked me to give him a call. I was like, ask him about a private. And he's like, oh, it's a Saturday. He's like, hey Bas, do you do privates? And he's like, oh, I do, but it's the weekend and I'm with my daughters and my wife. And you know what, Yves, give me 5 minutes, I will call you back. And he calls me back and he's like, hey, meet me remember Legends? He's like, meet me at the gym. This is the address. And I go up there and he got Marco Ruas up there and they're sparring and they're drilling and they let us drill with them and they show me some techniques and they hold pads for me and all this stuff. Like there's a moment where Marco double legs him into the wall, into the sheetrock, and his ass goes through the wall and they stop for a second and Bas comes up to me, puts his arm over my shoulder, is like, Yves, you see that? That is the nicest ass in No Holds Barred. And just things like that. Like a couple months later, I go back out to LA, and my girlfriend at the time wants to come out with me. She buys her ticket for the wrong day. She's a day early. I don't know anybody else in LA. I call Bas, and he's like, you know what? She can stay with me and my wife and my babies and blah blah. And he picked her up from the airport, and like he was like, man, Bas is a real one, man. It's crazy because, like I said, I was just I'm this kid from the Bahamas. At the time there were 300,000 people from my country, you know, and now I'm hanging out with these guys that I've watched on tape that I look up to. I had this admiration for, and like I'm their junior, but they still treat me like one of them. You know?
That's cool.
So
That's cool. So let me get a little background on that fight just for the people at home. Tim Horton is kind of like one of those guys that's probably got a 500 record, but he's fought everyone in Texas, like in a little regional scene. He outweighs Yves by about 40 pounds, and it's in a high school auditorium where it's empty. There's only like 250, 300 people there, and you got Marco Ruas and you got Bas Rutten. It's like I couldn't believe it just wasn't packed. And at the end, Horton gives an interview going, I fought everybody. I've been here, been doing that. That guy right there is going somewhere. Remember his name? He's going to be on TV. And it was just cool. It was just cool to see just a young little kid that just didn't have fear yet. You know, it just didn't exist in his life. Or if it did, he reacted so well to it that we couldn't tell at home.
That's the big thing, right? Like you don't learn how to deal with that for a while, I think. But the fact that Bas was there, you know, there's one of my heroes right there, and he was excited about it. You know, I told him I was going to go to this arena and try to get a fight. When he heard that I had a fight, he was really pumped. And again, him being one of my heroes, that just like, I don't know. I don't think Robin's going to be afraid when Batman's watching him go do his thing. You know what I mean? So for me, it was kind of like that. It was this guy who I look up to, and he's there and he's cheering me on, and nothing's going to stop me. There's nothing going to stop me tonight.
Well, from there, obviously, you guys formed a relationship because on August 14th of 1998, you fought at the Bas Rutten Invitational 4 against Nate Marquardt. So, like, a hell of a hard fight, obviously, just on paper. And you went out and fought on his event. What was Nate Marquardt, a young Nate Marquardt, like in rules meeting, pre and post fight?
Man, we didn't really hang out or talk to each other much before the event. Nobody knew who they were going to get, you know. But we did hang out afterwards, and he was cool, man. He was a cool, down to earth kind of guy, young, you know. I think he had just had a baby too. So it was obvious that he was dedicated. He was dedicated to the sport. I mean, he had a W over me, you know. So like at the time, like you're not like, you know what it's like Chris, you know, like anybody who beat like us coming up, like they were legit. You know what I mean? And that's where Nate was, man. The fight was fun. It was good. There was a series that we were in, and it's kind of crazy because we were in like a 50-50 position, but like I'm on top in half guard, and I turn for a toe hold, and this is just real inexperience at the time. As I turn for the toe hold, I expose my heel, and I get to his foot, but as I come back to crank the toe hold, he has the heel hook, so I can't turn back into it, you know. And I pop, and like he doesn't do the dick move, and he doesn't rip it. Like he feels it pop, and he lets go. His hands go up like this, and I scream because it hurts. But and you know, he was concerned for me, and that showed me a lot about who Nate Marquardt was at the time. You know, he wasn't as big of a guy either, but like we were fighting in this tournament because the winner of this tournament got to go and fight in Pancras. And that was one of my dreams, man, to fight in Japan. And so I was kind of devastated that night because I didn't make that happen. But like when I look back at it, it's one of those things where it's like it was destiny, because I would have never been as big as the guys over in Pac. They didn't have a weight class for me. You know,
what weight was that at?
It was 175.
Oh,
you know what though? I fought on the same card when Nate actually came and Pancras and fought. I was on that card, and it was weird because I was bigger than Nate at the time. Yep. I was thinking, this guy's lighter than me. He was one of the only guys lighter than me, and he fought Genki Sudo that fight and beat him the entire fight and got beat within like the last minute of the fight. He got submitted, but he was winning the entire fight, and Genki was a big, hyped up guy. And you know how good Genki Sudo was, and Nate was beating him. I was like, dude, I couldn't believe how good Nate was when he was there. I mean, but then the next couple of times I started seeing him, he kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I was like, dude, This guy's not done growing yet. He's like a puppy dog or something. He just keeps growing bigger and bigger. So
yeah, exactly.
But he was good. He was legit.
Nate was legit good, man. We stayed in touch. We stayed friends. You know, we years later we did this movie Warrior together, and we were in Pittsburgh for like 5 weeks. And Nate, myself, Nate Marquardt, Anthony Johnson, we used to just get together and train. You know, so that was fun too, and we still have a good relationship.
That's cool. So you're in the beginning of your career, as you have stated, there's no weight classes, and promoters really aren't doing you any favors because you're kind of a smaller guy. You fought on Extreme Challenge 22 in Utah against Fabiano Iha, which I believe is your first international experience in terms of opponent.
Yeah, that was also my first true MMA bout. Like we still call it NHB back then in that fight. And this is my first NHB bout where I got to punch with closed fists, you know.
Really?
So, getting ready for that, training for that, I was super excited. I finally went down to the Academy Sports store and got myself the Chuck Norris gloves and cut out the. I finally got him, you know, because I was able to spar like that now, and I was like, oh my god, I feel faster. I feel like throwing punches versus open hand stuff. I feel faster, you know. So I was really excited about that, but like I think some things got into my head, you know. Fighting Fabiano Iha, this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Like I'd never even rolled with a black belt before that, you know.
Wow.
Like Tim Mosel wasn't a black belt at the time. I think he might have been purple or brown, you know. I'd never worn a gi, but like, yeah, this was like that, and you know, we're talking about this is what, like 1999. So like this is when the
98.
Yeah, whoa. So this is when like the myth of black belt is like, if you're a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you could submit anybody. You know? So like I'm gonna fight this black belt, okay? And then Pat Smith is on that card, you know, and he's like, stay low, just stay low. And I'm just I was having a good time. We tied up, and when we got to the ground, I think just that inexperience, that age, and just being so young and being caught up in that whole Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, arm bars is his thing. Like I watched that tape, like, and of course now, like I'm much more skilled, much more experienced now. I watched that video and I'm just like, he's fucking horrible. Like how you get arm barred? You know, how you get arm barred right there? You know, so this is one of those things where it's like I've always said this to myself. Like somebody asked me one time, if you had a time machine, what would you do? I was like, you know what? I would get myself back in shape, shave my head, and just go back in time and fight. I would just fight, substitute myself for myself, and fight with what I know back then, because I would murder people.
Yeah, no, for sure. So you were listed. It was 165 pounds, which is still, you probably weighed in with your clothes on, and you've got Tim O'Sell in your corner, and he's got Marco Ruas in his corner, like one of your heroes. I was assuming that may have came into play as well, you know, being that kind of new Marco at this time.
You know, that definitely, Matt. Yeah, I forgot about that until you said that. Now, like, that's funny, man, because like Marco didn't speak much English at the time either. You know, Marcos didn't speak much English at the time, and so he was always nice to me. And it just kind of worked out too. Fabiano said that he got hurt during the fight. He said he got hurt during the fight with me. I don't know if he was just propping me up or not, but then he fought Kleber Luciano next. He won that fight, but he was supposed to fight in Los Angeles like a few weeks later in the LA Underground. And that fight for me, I took that fight because Fabiano, he was like, he felt like I was a good fighter, even though he armbarred me like some chump. But anyway, he was like, this opportunity that I can't take, I would like to offer it to you, you know? And yeah, that's an
honor.
Yeah, right? Like, and I felt honored by it, you know? Like, again, like still the myth of the black belt was still in my mind. That sunk in, but like this black belt, I just fought him, he won, but he's giving me some props, you know, and he's asking me to replace him in this event. So like I really appreciated that. And I went out to LA to fight that fight against this guy Luis Josides, and that was nuts because it was way out in Compton, and I forget where I was staying. I feel like I was staying in like Orange County because Fabiano was from Orange County at the time, and I rode with Marco Ruas to the event, and like I spoke a little bit of Spanish. Marco spoke Portuguese, so we're having this broken conversation in the car the whole time. But like I'm in the car with one of my heroes, so it's like I'm gonna figure out how to communicate with you.
Wait, so Yves, if you don't mind me interrupting. So is Marco just kind of talking and you're just nodding your head and he just keeps talking and talking? Or
it's the other way around. It's like I'm sitting there and I'm like, I want to talk to this guy because this guy, he's like the leg kick king of the world. And he just the first time I met him, he just saw me beat this guy with leg kicks. You know, so I want to talk to this guy and I want to ask him stuff, and I just want to be friends with him. And so I'm like I don't remember. My Spanish is nowhere near what it used to be at the time, but I just remember asking him like, if I spoke to you in Spanish, would that work? Could we have a conversation then? And he's like, yeah, I understand some Spanish. And I was like, awesome, let's go. And I just turned to that little kid. Hey, what's this? What's this? How do you do this? How do you? And I just started talking his ear off. But he gets me to the arena, and he's in my corner, you know, and Bas is in my corner. And it's kind of nuts because I'm fighting this guy, Luis Josides, and I get on top of him and I'm mounted on top of him and I'm punching him. Bas is like, don't punch yourself out. And I base out on top of him, and I'm like this close to the fence, and I look up, and Tank Abbott's right there, right? And Tank Abbott looks me in the eyes, and Tank Abbott goes, relax, just like that.
This is like a mushroom trip.
So I was kind of trippy, and then Bas was like next to Tank, and Bas like shoulder, not like me, like just like get out of here, you fucking with my guy. Right, and like he's like, Yves, right hook straight. Like he goes left hook straight, right. And I get on top and I go bang, bang, and open him up, and then just start raining down, and the ref stops it. And it was really cool, man, because like it was an underground fight. The cops came and shut it. No, the cops didn't shut that one down. Actually, it was the next one they did. They slowed us down. But like again, I'm in front of now. Like I'm in front. I'm got Marco Ruas and Bas Rutten in my corner. And Tank Abbott's right on the other side of the fence talking to me. And I'm just like, I'm now I look back at it and I was excited, but and I say it now, I'm like, this is a part of my arrival. You know, this is when I started to really start to make a name for myself, man. So like, yeah, you take
you making me feel bad. You're fighting in front of these guys. I'm fighting down in Tell City, Indiana. Miguel's got me. Why you put me on there? Ain't no superstars there, Miguel. What's going on here? He's got all these badasses here.
You were the superstar, buddy. You were the superstar.
I think he was lucky that Ruas just didn't leave him at a gas station because he was talking his ear off and he didn't know what he was saying.
Bro, no mas.
Let me ask you a question. You were talking about Tim Marcel a little bit, and I remember him from the first time I met you. But the coach I remember you with that I thought was very influential and that I always admired was Lewis Wood. Have you met him yet at this point? Where does he run into you?
No, I hadn't met him yet at this point. Wow, when did I meet Lewis? I didn't meet Lewis.
No. Let's give it a mic and let Mike take over.
Yeah, I got it. I have it documented. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I'm like psychotic.
We'll get to it.
It's a terrible thing that I have. So,
I like Mike's flow.
Well,
real quick. Let me say something. What Yves talking about here. I remember this black belt, mentality. Man, I remember when there was like 5 blue belts in the state of Indiana. So if you were a blue belt, it was a huge deal. Like, oh my God, this guy's a blue belt. So I can't imagine a purple or a brown. So when he's talking about this black belt, you got to understand, people can't understand now, blue belt, black belt, they're everywhere. It wasn't like that in the 90s, man. So if you found anybody who was even a purple belt, your head would blow up. So that I understand what he's talking about. Just though you're actually fighting a black belt, unfathomable. So just to reiterate what he's saying, 100% true. Go ahead.
I'm scared, man.
So Aaron Riley gets brought in from Hook and Shoot. He fights Tony Torres Aponte. And it is a hostile event. I know you were there. Tito Ortiz is a referee. And Aaron just is unfazed and beats him in his hometown. I don't know if something happened, if words transpired, but they they go, wait a minute. Bring him back. And they had Yves fight him. And Aaron Riley, it had no gloves, no tape, and it was a pancrase, but you guys were going at it.
Yeah. So I don't know, like Aaron and I, we had no beef. It's kind of crazy because at the time, like I felt like Tony was a rival because I felt like this guy has a school, he has all these students. I could beat this guy. Because like I'm this young guy coming up, and I just want everybody. You know what I mean? I want everybody, man. And you live in my town, and you're fighting, and we haven't fought each other, and like I want a piece of you too. You know. So that was a little thing for me. But when the fight with Aaron Riley came up, it was one of those situations where Aaron was a guy I had heard of, and I felt like this was my toughest real test up to this point. You know, I know that I fought Fabiano Iha, you know, I fought some NHB fights, but this guy, like, he's legit. Like, this is a real test. Like, there's no myth, there's no mystical the mystical aspect to this fight. Like, this guy is tough. He beats a lot of guys, and he's a champion of Hook and Shoot. Hook and Shoot, also the organization Hook and Shoot, that was a big deal. You know, Extreme Challenge was a big deal to fight there, but I fought a black belt and I let that get to me. Now I'm fighting for a Hook and Shoot title, and it's like, this is Hook and Shoot, man. Everybody on the ground knows what Hook and Shoot is. You know, everybody on the ground knows who Aaron Riley is, and a bunch of people on the underground know who Yves Edwards is. So like, and you know, I'm young, I'm a kid, and I'm reading this stuff. So I see these factions of Riley supporters, and I see these factions of Yves supporters, and I'm like, my guys are right. Fuck all that noise. My guys are right. So let's go do this, right? And we drive up to Wichita Falls, Texas, man, a place that I never heard of. It's like I think it's close to Oklahoma. You know, it's kind of far for me, but this is the first time I meet Miguel also and Jeff, and I'm like, all right, cool. This is cool. This is the first real organization that I've been a part of. You know, at least Extreme Challenge was legit. We weighed in and whatnot, but it just didn't feel the same. Like when I got to Hook and Shoot, I was like, this is something that was established. This was something that really meant something, and I was fighting for their title. You know, so this is a big deal. I was a main event also. Yeah, man. And the fight with Aaron, I go back and watch those fights still sometimes. I remember that though. This is one part of that fight though that trips me out, because like I don't know who this girl is cheering for, because she has a real country accent and she goes, "Beat his ass." I don't know if she's screaming at me to beat Aaron's ass, or she's screaming at Aaron to beat me up. You know what I mean? But like this fight, like we're going at it. You're right, man. There's so many moments in that fight that like you just have to. For me, I was like, I can't relax here. I have to do something. I have to do something about this. We're in this 50-50 situation. Like, okay, he's trying to get my ankle. I'm trying to get it. You know what? Fuck that. I'm going to hit him. Bam. And I smash him with a nice right hand. And there's that fight did so much for my confidence. It did so much for my fight IQ. That fight really helped me evolve in the sport of mixed martial arts, because I was fighting another guy who was a true mixed martial artist. You know what I mean?
The mental component there,
yeah,
absolutely helped. Yeah.
That was my first real chess match against somebody whose IQ was where mine was at. This was like I could lose if I fuck up, but I have to be sharp. I have to stay sharp this whole time through. And that's what that fight brought out of me.
I think the thing that shocked me as a viewer was, one, your knees. your knees that you landed to Aaron Riley's head were just brutal. They were absolutely brutal. And Riley just kept walking through them. Like, you fought a zombie. Like you're saying, yeah, mental toughness. No. You could have, 90% of the people would have gassed themselves out pounding on Aaron Riley, and Aaron Riley would have won the fight. But you persevered. You continued your pace all the way through. Very impressive.
That fight was fun, man. And I this is a side note, but it's an important note. That fight was one 20-minute round.
Yep.
Oh.
And it went to a decision.
Wow. Yeah, we just went. Like that was, man, I missed those days because that was a whole lot of fun. I'm gonna end up going back and watching that maybe tonight.
So Aaron Riley had Jeremy Horn in his corner. So Aaron, he gym jumped a little bit, but it was with all-star gyms, and the respect he would get from those gyms would be the head trainer would come with him because they respected him so much, his work ethic in the gym, that they would, it's one thing, yeah, I went out and worked with Jackson Wake. Well, who's cornering you? My buddy from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
The head trainers consistently cornered Aaron Riley throughout his entire career, and it's incredibly impressive on his end.
That's that fight IQ, man. Aaron,
yep.
Like that's the thing, you could feel it. And Chris, you fought him, so like you could tell like he knows what he's doing, right? So I could just imagine in the gym, like he's studious, he pays attention, he's listening, he's trying to do what's being taught. You know what I mean? And he's applying the technique like in live situations. Like that's what kind of draws trainers to you when you apply yourself. You know what I mean? So like, I'm sure from being in there with him, I could feel that technique about him. I could feel that he understood. There were some things that he did to me in both of our fights, you know, that was pure technique, you know, where he was successful. And that's why I had to be sharp, man. That yeah.
Well, not only that, but he's all those things you talked about, but at the same time, he's a grinder, you know, like, so he's in your face the whole time, and he's outworking people in the gym. And that's another thing I guarantee they respect from him. He's out there against these badass guys, and he's grinding them out. So that's tough to do, man. That mental and physical grind, you understand that, how difficult that is. And that's what I felt like one of his best aspects was that dude's in there just grimy, dirty, just going as hard as he can against people the whole time. And that sucks when you're going against it, man. You're like, that can mentally break people a lot.
Yeah, especially like you said, Mike, with that zombie style of constantly coming forward, pushing you backwards, you know, like, yeah, fighting going backwards, man, that's more tiring, exhausting than fighting going forward. I don't know why.
For sure.
Let me
it's
ask
mentally
you,
exhausting.
You kind of gave props to the organization and myself and Jeff, and I appreciate that. After fighting him for 20 minutes and you looked around and Jeff and I and someone else were the judges, did you have a doubt? Did you have a doubt in your mind? Did you worry about us a little bit?
So honestly, I didn't. I don't feel like I remember having any kind of doubt. I felt I was concerned. I was worried that I think now, because it's been so long and I know what happened. But I remember right now I can see the moment when we're standing in there and I forget the ref, long-haired guy. Sean. Yeah, I remember Sean holding our arms, and I remember just thinking, like, I got this, man. I got this. I know I got this. But like, there's always that like, this is his organization. You know what I mean? This is his thing. So and this was my first time fighting for you guys, right? So I had, in that fight, I definitely had a moment of concern whether or not I was going to get my hand raised.
Oh, did you? Okay, so I watched this entire event, and there was no people in the audience. So were you also worried about getting paid at the end of the bout? Because that would have been one of my concerns.
Honestly, because it was hook and shoot, because the name that was attached to it, I was like, I'm good. I wasn't a crazy amount of money. I think it was 1,000 and 1,000. It might have been
That's a good amount of money back then.
Back then, it was really good. Like, I would like. Of course, now I'm speaking after like having a UFC career and all this stuff, but like especially back then, like that's why I was happy to fight for hook and shoot, because they paid. You know what I mean? That like they paid me. That was probably one of the best checks that I got at that point.
And that was kind of like the Midwest title. Hook and shoot was absolutely the Midwest title. and it appears in Texas, and the away team leaves the building with the belt. So I thought that was actually pretty cool too. April 15th, 2000, they fly you out to Hawaii, Super Brawl. You're the main event against Miguel's favorite fighter, Rumina Sato.
Yeah, I didn't know, Miguel, I didn't know that was your favorite fighter, man. Now I feel betrayed.
No.
It is his favorite fight, 100%.
I believe he's the first pound for pound #1 guy. And part of it is getting through someone like you, unfortunately. But I know that this fight hurts you because you tell it. Yeah. You tell your story about it but it not hurt you in your career, but hurt you inside. Like I know, you wanted this one back.
Yeah. There was a lot that so I was friends with Tito Ortiz at this time too. And this was I'm fighting Rumina Sato. He's a guy I look up to, a guy I have a whole lot of respect for. I think he's amazing, but he's one of those names that's in Japan that I'm like, that's what I'm shooting for. That's what I want. I want to get over there. I want to fight these guys, and the opportunity comes up in Super Brawl. And but it's at 150, it's at 70 kilos, I believe.
154.
Yeah, 154.7 or some shit like that. And I'm like, I'd never cut weight before, I asked Tito, so I reach out to Tito Ortiz about it, and he's like, this guy's been doing it forever. So, and so this is something like I didn't understand at the time, as I got to give you another short story on Tito. He's a light heavyweight. He's like 200 and something pounds, right? So I was sick one day and I called him and I'm like, hey man, like, he called me and we were talking and he's like, you sound bad. I was like, yeah. And he's like, you should do this. Like, take 3 packs of Theraflu and pour it in 1 cup of water and drink that, right? And I did that. And I slept for like 20 hours, right? And then I was like,
die,
right? I was like, Tito, man, like I did what you said, but I slept for like almost the whole day. And I just realized now it's probably because of the weight difference. Like you don't give, the same amount of medicine to a baby that you give to an adult. So it's kind of like that. But anyway, like that came into play also. Like that was after the fact. The Theraflu thing came way after the Rumina Sato fight. But like, just thinking back on it, because with the weight cutting thing, he's like, he tells, I don't know about sauna suits or whatever. He's like, you get a trash bag, get a big trash bag, tape it up around your waist, one on your legs, each leg, and then you just work out on those things, ride the bike in the sauna and do all of this. And you could do that. You could do that in a day. You could do that in a day. I had to lose like 15 pounds. This is my first weight cut,
Well, how much did you walk around at?
I walked around at probably like 165, but like I retained water after flying, and flying to Hawaii was a long flight. So I was a little bit heavier, and I only got there like 2 days early. So I was a bit heavier also going into that one. And I had to cut like 15 pounds the night of the fight, night before the weigh-ins, I'm sorry. And like my girlfriend at the time was with me, and she's the one helping me cut weight. I'm taking diuretics. Like I'm taking X-Lax and these other things to try to get this. I don't know anything. I didn't wrestle in school. Like wrestling in Texas in Houston, it wasn't a thing. In Dallas it was, but in Houston, like it wasn't even in schools when I was a kid, I don't think. It wasn't in my school. And so I'm wearing this plastic. I'm in the sauna in this plastic. I'm riding the bike in the sauna. Doing all this crazy shit. I'm taking diuretics. I got diarrhea. The morning of, I get on the scale. I'm still a couple kilograms over. And I'm fighting Rumina Sato, so they're not giving me any leeway. Like you got to cut it. You got to lose that weight. So I go back and put more stuff on. And I go in there. And I just feel
miserable.
I feel miserable, but I'm also doing this by myself. Like I'm doing this by myself with the help of my girlfriend. Like my coach isn't there. He's not there. He's in Hawaii doing his thing. With someone special to him, right? So. Yeah,
is your girlfriend just saying, just don't lose? That's what mine would have been saying. It's okay, you'll be all right. Just talk to him. They'll let you do it. That's not how it works. And And man, I mean, it's amazing to me you've made to this level without really having any weight cutting experience because, I mean, ourselves at our team, if you're going to cut weight, we don't let you do it the first time you make weight. You have to do it a month out and then because the more you do it, the easier it gets. You know that. But I mean, you had no idea though at the time. So man, you're fighting like I've never seen anybody cut weight for the first time and win the fight ever. Seriously.
Yeah, that didn't go well for me, man. I was I had a hard time. And then finally, when, after getting on the scale, clearing the weight, was able to eat, recover, I still didn't feel like myself, but I'm still pumped. I'm excited. I'm fighting Rumina Sato. This is a big deal for me, man. This is huge. This is huge for me. And we get out there and the fight starts and it's nuts. Like, it's on Fight Pass, but the video quality is not the best. So you have to kind of pay attention. But here's what happens. Rumina comes in and he shoots to tie up with me. And I stick a jab, right? And the jab hits him. And it pops him, boom, and his head turns over. And as he's coming forward to tie up with me, he headbutts me unintentionally, right?
You had a huge welt on your head.
Yeah,
I had no idea where it came from.
So, like, I throw the jab, and he's closing the distance, and he pops me in the head, right? I drop to my knees. Like, my brain is still not back because I cut weight. I cut weight all along. So my brain is still real fragile. So I drop to my knees, and then I get up, and he jumps on my back, and I just climb up onto the ropes, and I'm holding onto the ropes, and I'm not there. I don't remember what's going on. And then all of a sudden, his arm comes around my neck, and he's fighting, and I'm one hand under, one hand over the ropes. And his arm comes around my neck, and my instincts kick in, and I start reaching for that, and I start fighting on it, pulling on it. He extends and stretches me out, pulls me back, and as I'm pulling on it, I'm falling back, and the rope peels one of my arms off. And when we hit the ground, he sinks it in and chokes me. And I tap. I only know this now because of watching it on tape. Like, I don't remember any of this, right? But the referee, the referee's screaming at me, let go of the ropes, let go of the ropes. And the referee's, for me, like, of course, especially when I was younger, this bothered me. The referee's standing on this side of me. He's a ref. And I don't know if he sees it. I think he sees this knot on my head that's bleeding. And, but he's telling me, let go of the ropes. This guy isn't throwing a punch. Why do I have a knot on my head? Yeah. But then, it's happening fast. You can't really think about that. Anyway, after the fight happens, my Rumina gets up. He goes back to his corner. He comes over to my corner to shake my hand. And I reach out to shake his hand, but I miss. I'm just like, I'm not there. I'm like, and, my coach jumps up on the apron, shakes his hand, and then jumps back down off of the apron. Like, I'm so world by myself.
Where I took from it is, it's like you're up against the ropes. You got your arms in there. He's saying, "Get off the ropes, get off the ropes." If you watch the tape, it looks like there's a pause. Like, oh, let me reposition myself, and then the referee's going to start the fight. Where Rumin is just like, he might restart the fight for you, but he's not restarting the fight for me. And he took kind of liberties that you wouldn't see in today's mixed martial art game with the advanced thought process and thinking. And it's just kind of, there was an advantage and he capitalized on it. That's kind of how I looked at it. It's unfortunate the fight is so short and you can see the disappointment in yourself after the bout. Like you're just, it's hard to watch.
It's hard to, like, it still hurts when I think about it because like every loss hurts, you know what I mean? And this is one that I had a passion for it, man. This is like I said, like I'm watching Shudo. Like I never stopped being a fan of the sport. So even when I was watching these videos to try and like I want to do this, but all I can do is watch videos now because I don't know where to train. I don't have the money to pay for training. I don't know where to go. I'm watching these videos and now I can pay for training. I can go to the gym. I'm training. I'm in this thing. And these are the guys that I'm looking at. I want to fight in Japan. That's where the best guys my size are. I want to fight in Japan. Rumina Sato's like, this guy is hitting flying arm bars in 6 seconds, blah, blah, blah. He's not going to do that shit to me. Yeah, let's go. And then I get choked in like 20 something seconds, you know? So it's like,
it happens, man. It is what it is. That's part of the game.
Winning.
Yeah, and just to give it a little perspective too, you know, as you said with Sato and Mike, you know, saying how much I love Sato. This was one of the knocks on Sato is that he was a hometowner with Shudo, And this was the first time they let him out. So I think Mike is absolutely right. You know, when he saw a shot at finishing you fast, he took it. He wasn't going to give you anything or any shot, just like make you wait, just like, and in the ring, not stopping the fight and stuff. So yeah, I remember, you know, you kind of built yourself back up with us. So yeah, but I remember talking to you at that time.
Let me ask you, how was TJ Thompson as a promoter?
TJ was cool. TJ was cool. I don't remember having any issues with TJ ever. Through this fight, you know, he was there for me. He was good to go. Yeah, I never had any problems with TJ as a promoter. I don't know that anybody has, but like for me, TJ was always good. But I didn't have a whole lot of experience with him. This was the only event of his that I fought in.
Yeah. So they bring you back to Hook and Shoot, where you fight Andy Mockler, and it's June 10th, 2000. You have Matt Hume and Dennis Hallman in your corner. Were you training at AMC for this bout, or was it just kind of like a locker room thing?
So I think I had one fight between that and between Rumina Sato and going to like that coach, I was still in the gym with him. That was Tim Mosel. I was still at his gym, but I went to that other fight against Cedric Marks without him. Like I didn't ask him, didn't tell him anything like that, right? Ooh. And Bas was going to be down there, and I asked Bas, and asked Bas if he would corner me for that one, you know. And then when I came back from that fight, he's like, "You fought last weekend?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You didn't tell me?" Like, "Yep, I don't have to." Like I was in a different. I was in my fuck you moment. Like I was done, bro. I was so done. Like there was a moment when we were rolling at one point, and I remember I used to spar with him. So when he was younger, he got his jaw broken at one point. So when he would spar, like he would never. He's like just don't hit me in the face, right? Like you couldn't hit him in the head, right? But like he can hit you in the head, right? It's really weird. And then we were rolling one day after this, and I was just like, I was done. I was just because I felt like the significant other that he was dealing with was like, you know, his thing. I was running.
So he was on a honeymoon, and you were there for a fight.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like I was running. I was doing all the things for the gym. I was teaching most of the classes, if not all the classes, all the stuff. And I was just like, man, I'm not feeling this anymore. And so like we're rolling one night, and like my attitude about him is different. And I don't know if you had this experience, Chris, but like my attitude about him was different. So it was like all the things that he used to be able to do to me, like they were gone. It was just like I didn't have that same kind of big brother respect or whatever it was. And there was so like we were in a battle at this point. And I'm underneath, I'm going for a leg, and I seriously feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just my perspective or my perception, but I was going for a leg, and I feel like he was going to step on my face. And so as his foot was coming down, I stomped up into his nuts. You know, I could have been wrong. I could have just been angry, you know, like looking back at it, I might've just been angry, but like, yeah, I was like, at that point, my girlfriend, Miguel, who you remember, the Filipino girl, I was like, she was like, yeah, you should just do your own thing, you know. That's when I moved out of that gym. I went to the other side of town. I opened up my own place. And this is why Matt Hume and Dennis Hallman were in my corner, because Hallman was fighting on that card also. And I just asked, I knew Dennis a little bit. And I asked him and Matt Hume, I wanted to go out to Washington at the time also. I wanted to move out there and train with him. But I asked them to move, and that's why they were in my corner. So long story again.
Nice. Well, yeah, the thing is, you're carrying respect from all of these A-level gyms, but you're staying in Texas.
Yeah. It was a family thing for me, and a big thing too. Like I felt I wanted to make that move, but like I left the whole country with just me and my mom, you know, and my mom's in Texas, and so like this is the new community that I've built, and so like, am I going to leave this community and the only person who came here with me to go be somewhere else? You know, I was
That's
still kind of young. You know, so yeah, that was the thing for me.
To recap, Andy Mackler is 7-2. Yves, you broke him early in the fight with striking, and you just punished him. Like, he was a 7-2 guy, and on paper, he had not really been pushed yet, but the few times he did push, he bent, and you sniffed that out immediately. You won in the second round by ref stoppage.
Yeah, the thing with Mackler, I just knew I was a better fighter. I just knew that going into that one, you know. I had no concerns whatsoever. So I was just like, wherever this goes, I'm gonna beat you up. I'm gonna beat you up. And I was in that part of my life. I felt like, I don't know if I felt this then, but looking back at it now, I think like I know where I belong. I know I belong on the biggest stage. I know I belong in the UFC. This is Hook and Shoot was the biggest stage outside of that. It was Hook and Shoot on the, you know, in the Midwest, King of the Cage out west, and I don't know if there was anything on the East Coast. Like I didn't care about that.
It was all closed. They didn't have it. Yeah,
that's right. So like it was like I was like this. I'm at the highest level until I get to the next, which is the UFC. And so like you got to really bring it. Ask Miguel, man. There was fights where I was like, Miguel, I will defend this pancreas belt early on the card, and then I will fight for the MMA belt, the NHB belt, in the main event. Like I was dead serious. And he was like, no, we can't do that. He's like, yes, we can do that.
So, you know, because
we should have done it in retrospect. We should have fucking done it.
So your career is so prolific in regards to the quantity of fights. You had fought Jeff Lindsay prior to this. And is that how you met up with Carlo Prater? Why don't you, would you mind bringing us through that relationship? And I'm not trying to skip forward and backward, but I don't want to get too far out before that's addressed.
Oh man, Carlo. So Carlo just walked into my gym one day. I didn't know him. I didn't know him, but he knew Jeff Lindsay, you know. And the Renegades tournament with Jeff Lindsay, it was supposed to be a 4-man tournament, and it was kind of nuts. There's some things from that I regret, but I will get to that. So that night we were supposed to be a 4-man tournament, but one guy backed out or something, right? And so we had to draw straws.
3-man tournament.
There was a 3-man tournament. Somebody was getting a bye. And Jeff Lindsay got the bye straw, right? So he got a bye. I had to fight this guy before him, Bone Sayavanga. And yeah, and so I get that guy in a triangle. I triangle that guy, and then I'm fighting Jeff Lindsay. But like I'm going to the fight with Jeff Lindsay is like, this guy's gonna be tough. Because I had fought a guy from Oklahoma early in my career, and he was a good wrestler, and he actually beat me up. Like I didn't know shit about wrestling, you know. So like I was like, this guy's tough. He's gonna be tough. This is gonna be a tough fight. I'm like, I was geared up for that one, man. And I was like, I gotta be on. And then as the fight started happening, I don't know. I feel like, Chris, you would understand some of these things. I don't know, but I'm a weird person. I think in like some weird aspects. But like I feel like I could feel the energy of like my skills are better than this guy. I could feel like I could do what I wanted when I wanted to. And I was able to hit a walk-off head kick, right? And so I don't know if Prater was there that night.
He was.
Okay, so
it impacted. We interviewed him, and he said that changed my life watching that fight.
That's nuts, man. Because like, I guess I don't know how much longer after that, Carlos walked into my gym.
He said he showed up the next week.
Okay.
He said he was like 90 minutes from me. I went to his gym. That's what he said. Yeah, in our interview with him. Yeah,
that makes perfect sense, man. Because like he came in and like I was like I'm. There's a moment in Carlos' career that I'm disappointed about because it's my, I feel like I could have affected it different. But like he came into my gym and man, like I nicknamed him Neo because I was like, this kid can do everything. Like he can do, his kickboxing was good. He could wrestle. His submission game was good. He was solid everywhere. And Carlo came out of my gym and he started fighting out of my gym and he was wrecking everybody. He was walking through people. And then he had the fight with Drew Fickett. And I had just come back from a fight of my own. My son was just born. And I told him I couldn't go with him. And I feel like me not being there, like that may have affected his confidence a bit. And then ever since then, it was just hit or miss with Carlo, man. But like Carlo was a dangerous motherfucker. I think Chris will agree. Confidence is probably the biggest intangible to this sport. And his confidence was like, if I affected his confidence, I feel so bad about that because like I feel like nobody could fuck with Carlo back then. He would walk through everybody, guillotine anybody, kickbox. Like he had this, I used to call it slice and dice. He used to do this thing where he would take a shot, and if you sprawled, he was shooting again before you get back to your feet, and he would just cut corners on you and just keep coming, man. I like that. That's the most disappointing thing for me as a coach, like ever, is not being able to do that.
I think the thing that stands out to most to all of us, because we had Carlo on, we had him on for like 3 hours. I mean, we didn't want to leave because we had so much to talk about with him, was his dedication equaled yours. And that's not something that you can say easily because of just how dedicated to your craft you were. It's like you two found each other and like you guys understood it, where most of your friends and family probably didn't.
Yeah, no, like Carlo was always there, man. Like my UFC fights, like he was my main training partner. Coming back to
he said that.
He goes, yeah,
he said
much,
that.
Man. We spent so much time on the mats together.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy. It was one of those things, man. Again, like especially having this conversation with you, there are aspects of that I'm thinking about now that I didn't really think about before, you know. Kind of like we're talking about me and Bas and just being in the room with Bas a few times. But like if Carlo's in the room with me daily, if like you said, he came because of the fight with Jeff Lindsay, you know, if he's in the room with me daily and like he's giving me fits, like this is the reason why he's going out there and smashing everybody, because he believes that I would smash this guy. So why shouldn't he? Because he's giving me fits and he wants to show me that, you know. Bro, Carlo is so good. Like the way he walked through Condit the first time they fought, like he made Carlos Condit look like he didn't belong in there with him.
Well, it's Spencer Fisher. Look at you to Spencer Fisher. You were cornering for that. Yeah.
I didn't corner him for the Spencer fight.
I thought I saw you in there. Okay.
Oh, maybe I did.
I thought I saw you. I could be wrong. I'm going off my head. Okay, what here? There is certain people that I love to talk about, and you encounter both of them in this in the next fight. September 16, 2000, King of the Cage. You fought one of Bas Rutten's better students, not one of his best students, but one of his better students, and Danny Bennett.
I didn't know he was one of Bas's students.
Yes, he was.
Danny Boy Bennett. Okay. Yeah.
So that probably helped you not knowing that until now.
Yeah. Like,
you went through him quick.
So he was a kickboxer, right?
Muay Thai.
Right. He's a striker, and I'm comfortable on my feet with anybody. But like I felt, especially at that time in my career, I was like, if you're my level or better than me on the feet, there's no way you're my level on the ground, and vice versa. Right. Mm-hmm. So I just gotta make the fight the easiest for me. And I figured I would sell him on the kickboxing. You know, we would get in a kickboxing fight. He would buy the Wolf tickets, and then I'd take him down. And I remember, I don't remember if it was off a kick or what, but I caught him in a beautiful double leg, got him off his feet, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna leave my feet too. Just boom, you know. So and once I got on top of him, it's kind of crazy though, because in that fight I punched myself in the face. Because I was on top of him, mounted on top of him, and I'm throwing punches, and he's covering up. My fist bounced off his forearm, hit myself in the face. And all I can remember thinking was, I really hope they don't see that on camera because I look so stupid. I don't want to look stupid. And then And then after I beat him, I do this stupid victory dance, and I look stupid anyway. So
isn't it amazing how sometimes when like right afterwards your adrenaline is so high and like you do a dance or like you start talking on the mic, you're like, who was that? You're looking at yourself from like the outside, like who was saying this stupid shit? You're like, that was me. How did that happen? Like it doesn't make sense until you go back and you watch. Like I don't even know who's in charge there because it sure as hell ain't me. It's that adrenaline it takes over, man. It's funny.
Chris, you don't understand. Like my stupid dance was I threw a 1, 2, left elbow, right elbow, upward elbow, upward elbow.
He was doing the Macarena, dude. He was doing the Macarena. Yeah, 100%.
It was so dumb. And Rico was in my corner, so that was cool. I was training with Rico Rodriguez at the time, and
that's when you were working out with the boxing coach.
I was actually working out with Lewis Wood and Saul Solis at the time. Yeah.
That's crazy. So the one thing that I really enjoyed about this, but I kind of fanboyed out, is Rafiel Torre's interviewing you after your bout.
Oh, man, I don't remember. Wait, bring me back.
So Rafiel Torre, you know who he is, right?
I know who Rafiel Torre is, yeah. Is he still in jail?
He absolutely is still in jail. Actually, his real name wasn't Rafiel Torre. But when he was charged, he gets through court, goes to jail forever, and he goes, man, it's really important to me that my name is actually Rafiel Torre. So he spends money to have his name legally changed because, he's got to kind of make the story fit together, at least in his head.
I didn't know. I forgot that wasn't his real name. I don't remember being interviewed by him.
Okay, so he was kind of one of those guys that would go from California to Texas. He hung out at Chris Brennan's gym quite a bit. Did you have any interactions with him socially?
No, never.
Best friends.
Yeah, no. Fortunately not, man. When Chris Brennan, I forget, Chris Brennan came, did he go to Houston or did he go to Dallas or Austin?
He was in Houston.
Chris Brennan was
I could be wrong. I might be wrong.
And yeah, I don't remember. No, you're right. Houston is so big. Houston is huge. But I don't remember if I was still there when he was there. I think I was, but I never saw Chris Brennan in Houston. Chris Brennan was one of those guys because he was from the West Coast. He fought a King of the Cage a bunch.
The poster boy.
I hated on Chris Brennan for a while, man. I wanted to fight him, especially after fighting Jeremy Williams in that Wet and Wild, because I was like, that was not a real fight, even though we were both in the same wet cage, you know what I mean? But he was talking a lot of shit during that fight, and I was like, fuck that guy, I want to fight him. So yeah.
So Eddie Bravo, a young Eddie Bravo was the announcer.
Yep.
Did you interact with him at all?
Not at that King of the Cage, but I did interact with Eddie Bravo at a Frank Shamrock event, Bushido in Arizona. And that was the first time I met Eddie Bravo. And so it's crazy because Eddie Bravo, the first time he comes up to me, he's so excited. He's like, yeah, man, that's what mixed martial arts is all about, man. The fight started, and you come on, you start doing head kicks, and you're doing this, and then this guy takes you down, you triangle him, man. That's mixed martial arts. And I was like, I was really pissed because Pete Spratt fought this dude named Mo Doom, and we had a bet, we had a $20 bet on who'd finish their guy first, and Pete knocked his guy out in 20-something seconds, and it took me a minute and a half. So Eddie Bravo was Eddie was talking to me and I was like, cool, yeah, thanks, man, that's cool. But I was just so pissed I owed Pete $20.
I lost $20, yeah, whatever.
So very rarely at this point you get gifts because you're 13-4. You fought all murderers. You fought 2 guys from Japan, obviously with name value, and you go and fight in hook and shoot. And Miguel lines up Scott Bills for you, who is 4-5.
Hey.
Those are the type of fights you say thank you for, at least at this point in your career.
So I had a similar situation earlier that I fought this guy Rafael Perlunga in one of my early fights. No, not Rafael Perlunga, sorry. Oh God, he's a friend of mine. I hate when this happens and my brain farts and I can't remember a name. But he came backstage and he was like he didn't want to get hurt. Because I had this rep and he was from Houston also, and he was talking about how Colton, I forget his last name though, But he talking about how he never takes off his wedding ring and whatnot. And then my coach at the time was like my rep was for knees, right? So my coach was like, when he came in to like say, you know, he's like, you know, I'm excited to be fighting you, but like he's basically asking me to take it easy on him. My coach was like, throw some knees on the pad, you know, to intimidate him. But anyway, something similar with Scott Bills. Like before the fight, I don't know why you would do this, but Scott came up to me before the fight and he's like, hey man, I just want you to know, like, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful by calling you out. I just wanted to fight you because you fought my friend Andy and blah, blah, blah. But like, I didn't even know you called me out. Like, I didn't know you wanted to fight me. Like, I was like, so, but when he said that to me, like in my head, I'm like, I didn't know you wanted to fight me, man. I mean, you want to defend your friend's honor. That's cool and whatnot. But like, that's cool. But in my head, like, I was like, I said that in my head and I'm thinking to myself, he's scared. So my reaction to him was like, it's all good, man.
You got like a super fly, you know, like the Mac. Yeah, okay. You got to play smooth.
I just want him to feel like I was going to fuck him up because that's the other thing, man. I don't like. It's one of those things. Like people used to ask me that in interviews. Your opponent had this and this and this to say about you, and I'm like, now my opponent can pick my mom from the airport, take her to lunch, and buy her flowers. He signed a contract that says he thinks he could beat me. Fuck that guy. You know, that's my attitude going into all of these things.
All the motivation you need, right? Yeah. That's all it is. Yeah.
Like the reason why we go to the gym every day is to be the best of what we do, right? So like for me, it's like when you sign a contract, you've written it down that you think you could beat me. No, man.
It's personal. If you signed a contract, it's personal.
Yeah. You're wrong. You know?
That's good.
Okay, so we're going to fast forward. May 26, 2001, on Hook and Shoot again, you fight a monster of a human being named CJ Fernandez.
Oh, dude, I fought that dude.
Yes, yeah, it's a common point between the two of you. He is a savage and long.
Hey, that's separated shoulders from him. Go ahead.
He's CJ Fernandez, and he's strong, man. Like
he was like 170, but he looks like he's like 190 pounds.
Yeah, he's tall, long, and strong, and like he's one of those guys. Like I feel like back in the 80s, early 90s, people used to think like you could be, if you're tall and you're lanky, you're not strong, bro. Like that, like you know that now from fighting. Like you could be lanky as you want, as all get out, but like he was strong as shit, bro. Like there was times when he'd take me down, and the things that I would do to get up, he would just like muscle me down, and there was nothing I could do about it. It was really miserable because he didn't want to engage in the striking with me at a sustained pace. You know, like he would just sell the striking so he could tie up with me and get to the takedown. And like fortunately for me, like the rule set we were going with was the shootout rules, and I clipped him with a nice right hand at one point, dropped him, and I tried to finish him, you know, but like he was able to tie me up or something to stop me from getting the finish. But like that ended up dragging the fight out to the draw because like he just won 2 rounds by being able to keep me on my back, and like he was dangerous. When I would open my guard, I could feel like his strength. I didn't want him to get past my closed guard to stay on top of me, man. I had to keep him in my closed guard or get back to my feet, and it was one or the other.
So Yves, you've mentioned a rule set. In the rules for the shootout rules, whenever somebody goes limp from a punch, there's a standing 8 count. And they will even break up you finishing the opponent in order to deliver a standing 8 count and make you sit on the other side of the ring. And that's what took place in the second round. It was one of those, if you were on the ground, they'd allow you to finish. But because you were on your feet, they gave him a standing 8 count. It was bonkers. Dude, you worked so hard. You worked so hard. And you finally get there, and then they take it from you.
Wow. Yeah. I forgot that's what happened. I was not a fan of that rule. But I feel like this is when the rule set for mixed martial arts was just like, it was still in the scramble where we didn't have a solid set of rules. The UFC might have still had that 112-minute round at that time, you know?
Well, why don't you mention who was in your corner that night?
You probably don't remember, do you?
Yeah, he does.
Don't. Wait. Against CJ Fernandez, my level or better than me on the feet, there's no way you're my level on the ground, and vice versa, right? So I just gotta make the fight the easiest for me. And I figured I would sell him on the kickboxing. You know, we would get in a kickboxing fight. He would buy the wolf tickets, and then I'd take him down. And I remember, I don't remember if it was off a kick or what, but I caught him in a beautiful double leg, got him off his feet, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna leave my feet too. Just boom, you know. So and once I got on top of him, it's kind of crazy though, because in that fight I punched myself in the face. I was on top of him, mounted on top of him, and I'm throwing punches, and he's covering up. My fist bounced off his forearm, hit myself in the face. And all I can remember thinking was, I really hope they don't see that on camera because I look so stupid. I don't want to look stupid. And then after I beat him, I do this stupid victory dance, and I look stupid anyway. So
isn't it amazing how sometimes when like right afterwards your adrenaline is so high and like you do a dance or like you start talking on the mic, you're like, who was that? You're looking at yourself from like the outside, like who was saying this stupid shit? You're like, that was me. How did that happen? Like, it doesn't make sense until you go back and you watch. Like, I don't even know who's in charge there because it sure as hell ain't me. It's that adrenaline that takes over, man. It's funny.
Chris, you don't understand. Like my stupid dance was I threw a 1, 2, left elbow, right elbow, upward elbow, upward elbow.
He was doing the Macarena, dude. He was doing the Macarena. Yeah, 100%.
It was so dumb. And Rico was in my corner, so that was cool. I was training with Rico Rodriguez at the time, and
that's when you were working out with that boxing coach.
I was actually working out with Lewis Wood and Saul Solis at the time. Yeah.
That's crazy. So the one thing that I really enjoyed about this, but I kind of fanboyed out, is Rafiel Torre's interviewing you after your bout.
Oh man, I don't remember. Wait, bring me back.
So Rafiel Torre, you know who he is, right?
I know who Rafiel Torre is. Yeah, is he still in jail?
He absolutely is still in jail. Actually, his real name wasn't Rafiel Torre. When he was charged, he gets through court, goes to jail forever, and he goes, man, it's really important to me that my name is actually Rafiel Torre. So he spends money to have his name legally changed because, you know, he's got to kind of make the story fit together, at least in his head.
I didn't know. I forgot that wasn't his real name. I don't remember being interviewed by him.
Okay, so he was kind of one of those guys that would go from California to Texas. He hung out at Chris Brennan's gym quite a bit. Did you have any interactions with him socially?
No, never.
Best friends.
Yeah, no. Fortunately not, man. When Chris Brennan, I forget, Chris Brennan came, did he go to Houston or did he go to Dallas or Austin?
He was in Houston.
Chris Brennan was
I could be wrong. I might be wrong.
And yeah, I don't remember. No, you're right. Houston is so big. Houston is huge. But I don't remember if I was still there when he was there. I think I was, but I never saw Chris Brennan in Houston. Chris Brennan was one of those guys because he was from the West Coast. He fought a King of the Cage a bunch.
The poster boy.
I hated on Chris Brennan for a while, man. I wanted to fight him, especially after fighting Jeremy Williams in that Wet and Wild, because like I was like that was not a real fight, even though we were both in the same wet cage, you know what I mean? But like he was talking a lot of shit during that fight, and I was like, fuck that guy, I want to fight him. So yeah.
So Eddie Bravo, a young Eddie Bravo was the announcer.
Yep.
Did you interact with him at all?
Not at that King of the Cage, but I did interact with Eddie Bravo at a Frank Shamrock event, Bushido in Arizona. And that was the first time I met Eddie Bravo. And so it's crazy because Eddie Bravo, like the first time he comes up to me, he's so excited. He's like, yeah, man, that's what mixed martial arts is all about, man. The fight started, and you come out, you start doing head kicks, and you're doing this, and then this guy takes you down, you triangling, man. That's mixed martial arts. And I was like, I was really pissed because Pete Spratt fought this dude named Mo Doom, like, and we had a bet, like we had a $20 bet on who'd finish their guy first, and Pete knocked his guy out in like 20-something seconds, and it took me like a minute and a half. So like Eddie Bravo was like, Eddie was talking to me and like, I was like, cool. Yeah, thanks, man. That's cool. But I was just so pissed I owed Pete $20.
I lost $20. Yeah, whatever.
So very rarely at this point you get gifts because you're 13-4. You fought all murderers. You fought 2 guys from Japan, obviously with name value, and you go and fight in hook and shoot. And Miguel lines up Scott Bills for you, who is 4-5. Hey. Those are the type of fights you say thank you for, at least at this point in your career.
So I had a similar situation earlier that I fought this guy Rafiel Torre in one of my early fights. No, not Rafiel Torre. Sorry. Oh God, he's a friend of mine. I hate when this happens and my brain farts and I can't remember a name. But he came backstage and he was like he didn't want to get hurt because like I had this rep and he was from Houston also, and he was talking about how Colton, I forget his last name though. But he talking about how he never takes off his wedding ring and whatnot. And then my coach at the time was like my rep was for knees, right? So my coach was like, when he came in to like say, he's like, I'm excited to be fighting you, but like he's basically asking me to take it easy on him. My coach is like, throw some knees on the pad, to intimidate him. But anyway, something similar with Scott Bills. Like before the fight, I don't know why you would do this, but Scott came up to me before the fight and he's like, hey man, I just want you to know, like, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful by calling you out. I just wanted to fight you because you fought my friend Andy and blah, blah, blah. But like, I didn't even know you called me out. Like, I didn't know you wanted to fight me. Like, I was like, so, but when he said that to me, like in my head, I'm like, I didn't know you wanted to fight me, man. I mean, you want to defend your friend's honor. That's cool and whatnot. But like, that's cool. But in my head, I was like, I said that in my head and I'm thinking to myself, he's scared. So my reaction to him was like, it's all good, man.
Got like a super fly, like the Mac. Yeah. Okay. You got to play it smooth.
I just want him to feel like I was going to fuck him up because that's the other thing, man. I don't like, it's one of those things, like people used to ask me that in interviews. Your opponent had this and this and this to say about you. And I'm like, now my opponent can pick my mom from the airport, take her to lunch and buy her flowers. He signed a contract that says he thinks he could beat me. Fuck that guy. Yeah. That's my attitude going into all of these things.
All the motivation you need, right? Yeah. That's all it is. Yeah.
Like the reason why we go to the gym every day is to be the best at what we do, right? So like for me, it's like when you sign a contract, you've written it down that you think you could beat me. No, man.
It's personal. As you sign a contract, it's personal.
Yeah. You're wrong.
That's good.
Okay, so we're going to fast forward May 26, 2001 on Hook and Shoot again. You fight a monster of a human being named CJ Fernandez.
Oh, dude, I fought that dude.
Yes. Yeah, it's a common point between the two of you. He is a savage and long.
Hey, that's separated shoulders from him. Go ahead.
He's CJ Fernandez, and he's strong, man. Like
he was like 170, but he looks like he's like 190 pounds.
Yeah, he's tall, long, and strong, and like he's one of those guys. Like I feel like back in the 80s, early 90s, people used to think like you could be, if you're tall and you're lanky, you're not strong, bro. Like that, like you know that now from fighting. Like you could be lanky as you want, as all get out, but like he was strong as shit, bro. Like there was times when he would take me down and the things that I would do to get up, he would just like muscle me down and there was nothing I could do about it. It was really miserable because he didn't want to engage in the striking with me at a sustained pace, like he would just sell the striking so he could tie up with me and get to the takedown. And like fortunately for me, like the rule set we were going with was the shootout rules, and I clipped him with a nice right hand at one point, dropped him, and I tried to finish him, but like he was able to tie me up or something to stop me from getting the finish. But like that ended up dragging the fight out to the draw because like he just won 2 rounds by being able to keep me on my back, and like he was dangerous. When I would open my guard, I could feel like his strength. I didn't want him to get past my closed guard to stay on top of me, man. I had to keep him in my closed guard or get back to my feet, and it was one or the other.
So Yves, you've mentioned a rule set. In the rules for the Shooto rules, whenever somebody goes limp from a punch, there's a standing 8 count. And they will even break up you finishing the opponent in order to deliver a standing 8 count and make you sit on the other side of the ring. And that's what took place in the second round. It was one of those, if you were on the ground, they'd allow you to finish. But because you were on your feet, they gave him a standing 8 count. It was bonkers. Dude, you worked so hard. You worked so hard. And you finally get there, and then they take it from you.
Wow. Yeah. I forgot that's what happened. I was not a fan of that rule. But I feel like this is when the rule set for mixed martial arts was just like, it was still in the scramble where we didn't have a solid set of rules. The UFC might have still had that, 112-minute round at that time, you know?
Well, why don't you mention who was in your corner that night?
You probably don't remember, do you?
Yeah, he does.
Don't. Wait, against CJ Fernandez?
Yep.
No, I don't. Oh, Tito. Tito was in my corner. Yeah, Tito was in my corner. That's right. Tito Ortiz was in my corner for that one because that's when I did my Michael Myers thing.
Yes, it was.
That was fun.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, that's
you did a prepared ring entrance for that bout. Yes.
Yeah. I trained. Wow, I trained with a lot of people. Yeah, I trained with Tito a couple of times. He was training with Salsa Lease too. So Tito, man, that had a lot to do with me getting to the UFC and getting, Joe Silva's attention.
Yeah, that was interesting. That was, you got Jeremy Horn in one corner with CJ Fernandez and Tito Ortiz in the other, and two very well-known people in the mixed martial art industry. And it appeared that they were bringing you in to hook and shoot and just building you up. And Miguel, I think you're the matchmaker. And it culminated with an Aaron Riley rematch.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead, Miguel.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
I was just going to say that, Yves hinted that Aaron was our guy when they fought in Texas. And I think, with respect to Yves, I think, we never ruled a rematch out back in Indiana. And I think it was always something that we tried to do right. So we didn't want to rush it right away. And that's where, Mockler and Bills, are both pretty above average guys. I think Yves is ahead of him in the game and stuff, but those were build up fights. CJ was a little bit more of a test. And then, bring him in for Riley and see what he does. And it was always like that. It was always like we had an easy guy who was up for the challenges. Like you said, he came in, he wanted one belt, leave with the other. He had all kinds of ideas and stuff. But I think that was the general plan after he beat Aaron the first time was let's build to the rematch.
So I don't know when I felt this, but at some point I felt like Aaron was Jeff's guy and I was Miguel's guy.
Yeah, there's some truth to that. There's some absolute truth to that. I was working with Miguel shortly after this, and you absolutely were his guy. The Bodog years, you could do no wrong.
Man, that was that's awesome to hear because that was what I wanted. I remember Miguel before the CJ Fernandez fight, there was an opportunity for me to fight Steve Berger. I think that was what was coming up. That was on the table. I don't remember why it went on. I think Berger pulled out to do something else. Terry Tribblecock wanted me to fight somebody around the same time. And when I told him, Hook and Shoot wants me to fight Steve Berger, I forget the numbers that he threw at me, but like, what are they paying you for that? And I told him the numbers and he's like, oh, that fight is worth twice that or blah, blah, blah. And then like a couple months later, he asked me to fight Steve Berger. And I was like, yo, when I told you that fight was on the table for me, you told me it was worth this. So I'm going to hold you to that. He's like, I never said that. I was like, get that, man. So, but like, and then the CJ Fernandez fight happened, and then the Aaron fight. And when the Aaron fight came up, I feel like that was the fight where I was like, Yeah, Miguel, I will defend my Pancras belt in the early card, and then I'll come back in the main event and fight for the NHB belt. You know, and I was dead serious about that because the guy, I forget the guy. He was kind of shaped and built like Aaron, but he was nowhere near Aaron's level. I forget his name. But I thought he was the guy that was the number one contender, and I was like, I'd smash that guy, and I'm gonna smash Aaron too. But the fight
was a hard fight, man. That was a hard fight.
It was a tough one. It was fun.
I think what you need to do is put it in its proper context too. So Aaron Riley goes and trains with AMC with Matt Hume, and Matt Hume. Okay, so in the Midwest circuit at this time, if you were to look at like an Arturo Gatti, Mickey Ward independent bout, it was the name that Yves had mentioned earlier was Steve Berger and Aaron Riley. And they never rematched. And the reason is because when Aaron Riley goes and trains with Matt Hume makes him take an entire year off to learn his system. So you're looking at a completely revamped Aaron Riley with Matt Hume and Josh Barnett in his corner. So you weren't really looking at the same guy as you had, a few years prior.
Yeah. I didn't know that, but that didn't even matter to me, man. I was like, I fought this guy before. I know what he's capable of. And like he did some different things in this fight.
It was a hard grind, man.
It was a hard grind. Tough fight, man. But there was I don't remember which round it was. But there was one point where I had him with my clinch and I kneed him in the face. And I swear it felt like I need a burlap sack full of fluorescent light bulbs, man. Like I just felt his face like shatter under my knee. And then he hit a takedown and like he was just bleeding all over me. Like his nose and his mouth was just leaking on me.
Well, we have a clips channel. So we have a long form channel and we have a clips channel. Okay. In that clips channel, Aaron says, Yves Edwards broke my face, and it was his palate. You actually broke his palate. We clipped it out because it's so unbelievable. And he's like, he broke my palate, and it was nightmarish, the recovery. I go I go talk to Matt Hume. He's like, I think my jaw's broken. And he's like, yeah, I know a dentist. We're going to get it fixed. Don't worry. We're going to get you ready for the next round. And Aaron Riley, when you talk about resilience and toughness, we talked about the zombie effect. I think he may have won round 3 after getting just destroyed in rounds 1 and 2.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a fight, man. It's one of my favorite fights, period, to watch.
Aaron is tough. Like that's
no doubt.
There's no doubt about it. Like after I landed that knee, like a lot of guys would just like, especially at this level, if you're not in the biggest show, like this is why you know where he's gonna be, where he was gonna end up. Because if you're not in the biggest show in the highest format, you get kneed in the face like that, you walking away, you fold into that, like, and nobody's gonna look down on you. If he were to his knees and covered up and just took the loss, nobody would have been like, oh, he's a pussy.
Eve, have you ever had a guy who back in the day, my favorite thing was to get him on the ground and knee him in the head because they would always roll over, basically saying, choke me. You know what I mean? There's honor in that. It's not tapping to the strikes, but they'd always roll over. And like you said, they find a way out of it. As soon as they get hurt, like, screw this, I'm done. But Aaron didn't do that. Aaron's just like, I'm going to keep coming. Like, dude, I broke your face. Yeah,
never did.
That's nuts.
One single time that, like, I feel like he was gonna quit on me, And like there was just some moments in that fight where, like, I remember him shooting a takedown, tying me up, and I'm like, yeah, this is not gonna. And then he fucking tilts me, hits a nice, beautiful knee tap. He knee tapped me with his knee. You know what I mean? He gets some body lock, knee taps me with his knee, puts me on the ground, gets to my back, and we just getting a lot of these scrambles, man. And then the end of that second round, like I have him on the ropes. And I'm just teeing off on him, and that's another like the ref. That's a moment when the ref could step in. But like we're in Aaron's hometown, and Sean has seen Aaron fight so much, and he knows how tough he is. He's taking it, and he's not just covering up. Like he's covering up, and he's swinging back, and he's covering up, and so he's not out of it. And then the third round, man, we getting a couple scrambles. He's on top for most of that round. But yeah, like Aaron is one of those guys who, honestly, because I think you fought him next, and that's when I was like, because I didn't really, I heard your name a few times, but like after you beat Aaron and the way you did, I was like, oh shit, this dude's for real.
Were you at that event?
I was not there, but I saw the result. Didn't you knock him out? Or you stopped my TKO, right? And I was like, oh, this dude's legit. He like I beat the shit out of this dude, and he stayed there. Like if this dude stopped Aaron, like, oh, like this is a guy that I'm probably gonna run into one day. That's when I thought I was still gonna be fighting on 70, you know?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what helped get me back in the UFC, actually doing that. So
I think the culmination of Berger, Aaron Riley, yourself, and Chris, there was like a handful of different fights that I believe that the UFC were watching and incredibly impressed with. And they would try to like make those fights in the UFC and try to recreate that magic. I don't know, Miguel, if you agree with that, or not, especially with Robbie Lawler. Like, look at Robbie Lawler. All right, first Steve Berger, and then we're going to do Aaron Riley. Like the magic that Miguel created as a matchmaker of hook and shoot, I truly believe was trying to be taken to the UFC.
Well, you could talk a little bit too about Joe Silva because, Joe was a guy who was my friend and he definitely watched our show, but Joe was always very much a purist. So you had to be good. You know what I mean? But you also went on, I think you're the kind of guy that probably talked to Joe directly a lot and maybe became friends with him and stuff. How'd that go? Because Joe could be very accessible back then.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And I met him, because remember, the UFC used to do a lot of those events down in Louisiana, and especially when Zuffa took over, and Tito was on his rise, and that's kind of when our relationship started. And I met Joe Silva when Tito fought Frank he only fought Frank once. When Tito fought Frank, right? Tito was dyeing his hair. He I don't know what he put some stuff in this Woolite bottle, and he's dyeing his hair and whatnot. And I met Joe Silva that day, and I knew who he was. I knew he was the matchmaker for the UFC, but the fact that he knew who I was, like that was a big deal for me. And that's when we kind of started a relationship, and we talked a bunch of different times over time since then. And then Joe and Aaron were good friends too, so I had an idea that he was watching that fight, but I honestly didn't know that fight was going to lead one of us to a UFC contract.
I did. Watching it. Oh, I mean, and I never even talked to the guy. You see your body of work, you're murking people, but you also got that style that is appealing to the UFC at that time. Like they were kind of done with the ground and pound wrestlers. Like you saw what they did to Philip Miller right around that time. And they were just like, I mean, Miguel likes to use the term, you checked off a lot of boxes. You coined the term thug jitsu, which I think if it came around today, it would be huge. I mean, I must admit to you, more than one occasion I've looked for a thug jitsu t-shirt online just to friggin' wear that thing around with a smiley face like that. I want one of those t-shirts so bad. So you had the thug jitsu, you had a good build, you had an exciting style. I think your weakness was strong wrestlers, and usually it benefits you to be in a ring rather than a cage. For some reason, it was the opposite with you. Because, the wrestlers, they got to work real hard in a ring, much harder in a ring. I don't know. It was just almost better off fighting a wrestler in a cage for you than it was in a ring. But, no, I thought for sure. If it wasn't that fight, it was the very next one, which brings us to UFC 33, your UFC debut against Matt Serra.
If I could pause, and right now you've already met Lewis Wood, so why don't you talk about him? Because I know I respect him, and I got a feeling you got some nice things to say. So why don't we give him some props, because he's kind of a forgotten figure here.
Man, like I put in so much time with Lewis. Lewis brought me to another level, especially with my boxing. He was an NABF champion, 126 pounds, and he was one of my main sparring partners. He introduced me to a lot of really good boxers too. Kenny Weldon was one of my coaches, and Lewis had a lot to do with me beating Aaron. Aaron went to Matt and he was training on the Matt system for so long, but like I was also evolving. The first time I fought Aaron, I was with Tim Mosel. You know, when we fought again, I had been consistently training with Saul Solis and Lewis Wood. You know, and Lewis at the time was ranked in the top 5 in every boxing organization at 126 pounds. You know, like there was some opportunities for him to fight Prince Nassim, and there was another guy at that time that
Barrera.
Yeah, it was Barrera. So those were opportunities, like those he was in the mix for those fights. You know, he never got him because he was a little bit too old, and they didn't want those guys losing to a guy who was 38. You know,
his style. Yeah. I mean, you're not going to sit here and say his style would beat Prince Nassim, but
yes,
he's not
his style would beat Prince Nassim. He was kind of one of those come forward guys and like good angles and footwork. Nassim was not gonna out angle him. You know, he came under that Willie Pep system, so he came from that lineage of Willie Pep. You know, so like he had and he was just this rugged little dude. You know, he was just tough, and he could kickbox too. He started with some kickboxing, and him and I used to spar like legit. Like he hit me harder than most people at 126 pounds. He's walking around 140 pounds, you know? And like we legit used to spar 5 days a week.
Oh. Yes, my kind of guys.
When we'd go hard, we'd go like 7, 8, 10 rounds, you know? He was training to fight with Chris Kelly. And Chris Kelly, I believe his name was, black guy who was a southpaw. And Lewis is a southpaw. And that was when because I used to fight Orthodox a lot back in the day, but like as helping Lewis for that, I started doing a lot more southpaw things. And yeah, man, I learned so much from him. I was in the best shape of my life. And we used to do all these little drills that just kind of that did help me so much. Like we used to do these drills, like we would do these things called fours, and he would draw a line inside the ring, and we'd be in this little box. It was like literally like a quarter of the ring or smaller, right? And like he gets 4 shots, I get 4 shots, and we got to react. And he wanted me to, like, off of his 4th punch, he wanted me to react off of that one, you know.
It's that window. Yeah, he made you go through that window. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm fighting in the phone booth, you know. But then he would also make me. He was like, but also he wanted me shadowboxing long. He wanted me punching long. He's like, you could always shorten up your punches, but you can't go long if you fight short all the time. But if you fight long, then you could always shorten up when you need to. You know, Lewis, he's a fireman.
There's some truth to that, man.
Like the time that he was able to put into me, he was a fireman. So he worked 2 24-hour days. Like Chris is liking that, right? He worked 2 24-hour days, and then he had 5 days off. So he's on today, he's off tomorrow, he's on Thursday, then he's off for 5 days. So all those days we would train, you know. And then a couple times he's like, "Hey, come up to the station," and we hit mitts, or we'd hit the bag. And, you know, I would like to go up there because they always had a lot of food. There's always a lot of food at the firehouse, man. So
bunch of fat asses.
So yeah, it was, man, I spent so much time with him. I learned so much, and I got so much better at boxing, especially my boxing really, really got sharp because of Lewis, man.
Now, Yves, I got a question for you. I'm of the same mindset. I mean, I remember when I'd hear something like Oscar De La Hoya sparred 100 rounds for this. I'm like, that's it? But he trained for 2 weeks? Because I used to spar a lot. We do like 10 rounds a day too. That's just how I think you used to do it. I feel like a lot of people now, they're saying they don't like spar at all. I mean, what do you think of that? I mean, I get it when you get older, you probably should, but hell, some guys don't like to spar up before fights now. I mean, I was of the opposite. What do you think about that different style?
You know, I'm one of those guys who's like, there's some people who just can't drink milk. You know what I mean? Some people are lactose intolerant. So it's like for me, I like sparring. I still spar occasionally. I don't need to do it. I don't necessarily need to be getting hit in the head, but like, maybe I have a little bit of CTE, but you won't be able to tell until I'm dead because you got to test my brain because I'm not stupid. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's just one of those things where I don't know, man. I've gotten dropped in sparring. Like I've definitely sparred over 10,000 rounds. Absolutely 100%. I've sparred over 10,000.
My man.
Jesus.
Right? I've been dropped 3 times, and I've never been unconscious in the gym. I've just been knocked off my feet, like,
Nice.
or stunned. I don't want to call any names, but I've knocked out some of my training partners, some guys that you guys would know, and like, I don't think it's for everybody to spar all the time, but I think there are some people who can do that. And I think some of those guys are some of the best. I think at some point you don't have to do it, but there is a point in your career when you have to spar almost every day, but like, you get to a point where your skill level and you're sharp enough that you don't have to do that every day. And I think some of these guys are there today. Like, I think like a Max Holloway, he's a guy who doesn't need to spar all the time, but like it'll help every once in a while to sharpen up, but he doesn't need it. But like, I think like we don't need it. If we were still competing, I don't think we would need to do it all the time, but like, it also wouldn't hurt us.
But I think the way you're saying is the reason you don't need to do it all the time is because you've already done it all the time. You know what I mean? Like, that muscle memory, and like you said, that 10,000 rounds, 10,000 hours, whatever you want to say, that's already ingrained into my head. And I sparred with the other guy the other day, and I had like 8 rounds, and I had to explain to him, I'm like, look, you're faster than me, you're smarter. I mean, you know a lot more than me, but you can't hit me because I'm anticipating when I don't wait to see when you throw a punch and duck. I know when you throw the 1, 2, the 3s, I know how to duck before you even throw it. And he never got that. So that knowledge we have, you don't need to do it every day, but you had to do it to get there. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. There's some moments that I'm so proud of, and I'm like, I remember thinking nobody's even going to see this, I have a couple of them in the UFC. I have a couple of them in hook and shoot, but like, nobody's even going to notice this. But there are times when people throw punches at me, like straight right hands, and they're coming at me fast and hard. And I don't even move because I know my range. I know you're going to fall short. I don't even move. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, it feels good because you're like, I didn't even move when that punch didn't reach me. Like, like, it's one of those.
It missed you by like that much.
Yeah. It's going to be an inch away.
Yeah.
So at this point, Yves makes his UFC debut. He has 45 fights up at this time. So, Yves, our format's the same. We don't change our format on our interview process.
Wait, 1 second, Mike. I feel like you're still saying Yves. I feel like
he said Yves. He said Yves. He's been getting it right last couple times.
Cool.
I got it too.
It's been addressed.
I got it. In fact, I even knew that prior to the interview, and I still screwed it up. But no, I've corrected myself. So it's I think it's your 46th fight. No, it is your 45th fight in your UFC debut, and you're fighting a Henzo black belt, Matt Serra. Did that black belt kind of like thought process kick in again with him prior to this? And how did the bout come about?
Yeah, it did. It did. I can even show you the moment in the fight where you could see that I ran from the black belt. It sucks so bad, man. The fight, I got a phone call from Joe Silva. And it was cool. It was cool to get the phone call because at first I thought he was just calling to congratulate me about the win over Aaron,
Right.
But he's like, yeah, and he did congratulate me over that. And then he was like, and I want to offer you a contract. I want to offer you a contract to fight in the UFC 4 fights. This is
what?
This is UFC 33. So they still weren't making any money. They were in the red. They weren't paying a whole lot, but it was the most I was making for a fight. My first contract was 4-4.
What? They were paying you way more than me. What's going on here? I thought it was 2-2 standard deal. They didn't even do contracts for us, man.
Well, keep in mind, I'm just going to take a guess there, but you're talking UFC 33. You're talking Joe Silva's actually got more experience in handling the roster than Dana at that point. Dana's really not making decisions, and they probably let Joe, who slipped in, and you get reliable guys and you're building your roster. So and the UFC crushed that shortly after. Let's just say
that.
Yeah,
because they weren't signing anybody to contracts.
UFC 31 may have been their first event, I believe.
30 or 31, yeah.
It was Japan. I think it was 31.
Yeah.
So, Miguel, you're 100% correct. Dana, I think he had his toes in the water, but he was trying to straighten out a whole bunch of other moving parts before he really kind of buckled down and the talent.
Well,
but
like you said, I remember I went back and started fighting over in Japan. I didn't come back to UFC 45, so he was there but I mean, back in my ever since Zuffa bought it, I didn't fight for them again until 45. So you were in there earlier than me, Matt.
Yeah, that's what it is. They do 8 fights at 16 people. You got your stars you got to take care of. Yves would be at the bottom of the roster, low maintenance, high upside kind of guy. Hey, toss him 4-4. It makes sense if you were Joe Silva.
Well, did you have the UFC jitters at this point as well? Like for your first UFC fight, you're 45 fights in. It's hard for us to imagine you would, but did that happen?
There was a little bit of that, but it was because the stage was so much bigger, so much more grand,
Okay.
Like this is back when, like the way we walk out now, the way fighters walk out now, we walk out of that tunnel and you're walking through the crowd, but this was like the Pride entrance. You came down the ramp, with the fireworks and boom, 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 and then this is the biggest arena that I had ever fought in. Like I'm fighting in the Mandalay Bay. Not a lot of people are there because 9/11 just happened like 3 weeks ago. But this is huge,
Against the guy from New York at that.
Against the guy from New York. It was kind of crazy because I was like Salsa Leash was like, you shouldn't have said that on one of the local radio shows. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna kick some New York ass. And he's like, New York just got their ass kicked. Like you shouldn't have said that. Yeah, it was for me. It was kind of cool too because at one moment I know I was fighting one of his guys, but I'm in the bathroom. I'm washing my hands, and Renzo Gracie walks into the bathroom. And Renzo, like I've said this before, I'll say this 100 times. Like Renzo is my favorite Gracie. He's the toughest of all of them. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care about records or none of that shit. Renzo's a man who's like. You get one of those other guys, you get Hoist, you get these other guys. Okay, well, I need these rules. I need this. Renzo's like, you want me to fight who? When? How much? All right, let's do this shit. That's why I like Renzo. Because, Renzo is just a fighter. Like, I think that is the first thing for him, And I have so much respect for that. And I always have. I even liked when he stepped on that dude's neck for talking shit to him. But I'm in the bathroom washing my hands, and then I'm taking forever to wash my hands because he's in there taking a piss too, and I'm just washing my hands forever. And he comes out and he starts to wash his hands, and he's talking to me, and I'm like, fucking Renzo Gracie knows. It doesn't even cross my mind that because I'm fighting one of his students. It's just the fact that Renzo Gracie knows me and he has respect for my skills. You know what I mean? So that was really, really cool for me because this is another one of those guys I look up to. You
got 45 fights at this point. Like, when do you start to accept that you deserve that?
Not yet.
It's hard for me to even hear those words coming out of your mouth. Truth be told,
I get it, but I know when it was. I know exactly when it was that I realized where I was and who I was.
Okay,
but it didn't happen yet. And in this fight with Matt Serra. I felt good. But I still wasn't in my own element. You know what I mean? I did feel a bit intimidated by the arena, by the grandeur of the whole scenario. But and then the black belt thing still also had played a part in it. There's a point in that fight where I dropped Matt with an uppercut, and I jump on him, I throw 2 punches, and I'm like, he's a black belt, and I stand up, and it's like, like that blows my mind because if I didn't, I probably stop Matt Serra right there because he was stunned when I got on top of him and I drop elbows. But the whole he's a black belt thing still and it has to do with how I came up. I came up in a system that where the black belt, we didn't have black belts, you know, we still didn't have black belts in Texas at this level at the time, except Carlos Machado, who's up in Dallas, who I never trained with. Yeah, it was, oh man, like, like I'm disappointed. I feel like the same way I felt about the Rumina Sato thing when I think about it. Is like, fuck, I could, like, that was such a that was a moment that changed, you know, like could have changed so much.
Well, you have to wait almost, an entire year after that. And you had to wait till UFC 37 to fight Caol Uno for your second crack in UFC after you had lost to Matt Serra. Caol Uno is one of those guys where I don't know why the UFC kept him around. Like, his style was just so not exciting. It was like almost that they were in love that he was from a foreign country more than it was a skill set, because I've never seen him in a really good fight, to be honest with you.
So Caol Uno, fighting him, that was a big deal for me, because like after my first UFC fight, I fought in this other event in Hawaii called Bushido for Helen Miller, right? And Dana was there. That's where he fought Josh Thompson and Robbie Lawler. But like, I fought this guy Coulthard Gill, and I got into a heel hook situation. I hate heel hooks. But like, I remember this guy was tough, and it was a little scramble, and I was like, I'm not losing my contract over you. So like, I popped his ankle. You know, I felt like a dick after it, but whatever. And then
he's okay.
Yeah, he can.
Yeah.
But then that Caol Uno fight came up, man, and I was like, yeah, because he beat Rumina Sato twice, and he walked away. He walked away from Shudo after beating Rumina Sato the second time, and it seemed to me that Shuto wanted Rumina to be the champion. You know, the way they were promoting him and the way he got that rematch seemed seemingly so quick against Caol Uno. And I feel like Uno didn't get the respect from Shudo that he felt he should have gotten. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world that he beat this guy twice. And then he was like, he must have announced it in Japanese on the mic, I'm done. And he left. I think he left the belt in the ring. Like, he didn't even want, you know what I mean? And I get to fight this guy who I've been watching for a while. I've been watching all the Shudo guys for a while. And he beat the guy who I wanted a rematch with over losing off of something incidental. And then coming out to fight Uno, like,
his grappling is like so high level.
He's really good. He's really friggin' good. And
it takes a real, like, technical eye to appreciate that style of fighting.
And the things that he was able to do, and the things that I was able to stop him from doing. This fight, when you asked me about, like, you had 45 fights, and this is the fight that for me, it was like, this is the one that taught me that I lost the fight, but
yes,
everything about this fight taught me that I belong. You know, this is a guy for me. I know he lost to Jens earlier, but I was like, this is the guy for me. This is the guy. I wanted to go to Japan. This guy was the champion in Japan. He's the man. And like, I love this guy. I look up to this guy. And I'm fighting this guy who I admire. We can't even communicate, you know. And when the fight's over, like the end of the second round, I run him down. I throw a head kick. He ducks it. And as he ducks, I reach down and grab him. And I catch him in like a schoolyard choke. But like, my jiu-jitsu isn't what it is today. And I get the schoolyard choke, and I'm under his chin, and I'm pulling and I'm squeezing. I'm leaning back on him, squeezing, which is wrong. I'm supposed to cover and press on it. But I have him, and the bell saves him, right? If I had time, he would have tapped regardless. But like, without time, I had to do perfect technique.
So Lewis Wood is in your corner.
Yep.
What is he saying to you in between rounds?
This is Lewis. All right. We got to get this guy, right? We got to keep him on the end of our stuff. We're going to keep him on the end. We're just going to hit him. We're going to hit him we got to keep the range. You got to give him, like, Lewis was very, very, very simple. And he almost always wanted me to box. Always wanted me to box.
Forget this ground stuff.
Yeah. He's like, so he never, when it hit the ground, he's like, he didn't even know what to tell me. So he just kind of left that alone. you know. Like for real, I'd be in the locker room. We'd be warming up. We do pads. He want to do like, I have 30 minutes to work out. He's like, he's taking 27 of those minutes, and then he's like, all right, y'all do some of that grappling. Like, you know. But
it's funny.
But
it's funny.
I mean, like he was sharp in the corner though, you know. I can't remember exactly, man, what he was saying, but he definitely wanted me to keep him on the end of my stuff. That was one thing he always wanted from me, because he felt like once I learned how to dictate range, he felt like I was very sharp there. And I really was, like I said, at the end of that round, throwing that head kick, like the spacing was just perfect for me. And then after that fight, I went back in the locker room because, like I said, Uno was one of those guys I looked up to. And I seen so much of what he's done. And I go to the locker room, or even after the fight, I'm sitting on the stool and my mouth is closed. I'm not even breathing hard. And we put out a bunch, but he's like laid out. He's exhausted. He's tired. We go back to the locker room. I go in there to say, you know, thanks for the fight. And he's still laid out. And like between all of that, I was like, this guy was one of those guys I looked up to. He's fought everybody. Like, I'm fucking where I belong. And that's why, like, I just started running through people. I lost one fight between then and being the uncrowned king, you know?
Right. Well, right around this time, mixed martial arts is really progressing, and the public is starting to accept it, and the lawmakers are starting to listen to what their constituents are saying, because California has their first official event, and that's UFC 37.5, where you fight Joao Pierini.
That was actually in Vegas.
That was come on, Mike. Come on.
You sure about that?
Positive. That was at the Bellagio. That's where Chuck and didn't you fight on that, Chris?
No, I didn't get back to UFC 45, man. 10-year anniversary.
Yves, okay, so this is, I'm just going to be very direct with you, and we're not going to edit this. Every interview, every single one, like, I do crazy amounts of research, and I get like one little tiny thing wrong, and Chris and Miguel, that's all they concentrate on. So when I
it's embarrassing, Yves.
It is. All right. So Yves, all right, here.
You got one job, Mike.
Yves, this is the setup for this fight. Joao, a few months later, he's over at a Starbucks drinking beer, runs into three of his students, 4 children, 3 students, wrangles them over to his dojo, and let's just say he's got to register for some things that took place. However, when researching all of the things that took place, because he had his own academy, it said that event was in California.
What, the UFC event?
Yes.
Huh. No, that was at the Bellagio.
Not my fault, Chris. Google.
You got to do research, brother.
This whole setup
That's
thing
what
was
I do.
for me to drop in, dude. Diddles and kids.
I'm just saying what I do. I double check. That's just me, though. Go ahead.
So, wait, here. I'll tell you what the surprising thing about this bout was. I think for those MMA trivia buffs, there's a dude named Crowbar that goes batshit crazy on the underground forum about MMA trivia. This may have been the very debut of the Superman punch.
Huh.
No idea.
I think so. And you thank Carlo Prater at the end. They said, what was that leaping punch that you threw? And you say, my guy Carlo Prater taught me that in the gym. We call it the Superman punch. After that, that was the move.
Okay. Who did the Superman? I did the Superman?
You did it. This is a jiu-jitsu dude.
Wait. Okay. So, I didn't win that fight by Superman though.
It was a head kick, but what set it up was the Superman punch.
Okay, cool. I don't remember throwing the Superman in that one, but I
yes,
believe
you did.
100%. Okay.
So there you go, Chris.
That's fantastic.
Well done.
Sometimes you got to flex a little. But the main reason I brought that up was to say that dude went to prison for a few years and got deported. That was the whole reason I brought that fight up, other than it was your first UFC win. Why don't you walk us through the experience of finally getting your hand raised and kind of coming to understand that you deserve to be there? Because that fight certainly showed that.
Yeah, after the fight with Uno, I was waiting to get back in the UFC. I think I had like one hook and shoot fight in between then. I'm not sure, but no, because that was 37.5. That was real quick turnaround. That's right. So yeah, the fight with Pierini, that's kind of funny, man, because Pete Spratt was on that card with me, and we were cutting weight in Vegas in the heat. I remember and that was in the summer too. So I remember running outside in Vegas in plastic. It was a miserable time for the weight cut, but it was a whole lot of fun, man, that whole week. So we're at the Bellagio and they have these two restrooms, right? So we're Bellagio was not built for holding events like this. This was something they were doing because they were gonna put Robbie and Steve Berger was on that, and they were profiling Robbie on the Best Damn Sports Show, and Chuck and Vitor Belfort, right? So this place isn't really built for it. So we had these curtains in this hallway that were set up for us to work out in, and the bathrooms that we could use was the bathrooms that like Dana and a lot of the execs had also. We had to go in there, we had to go through them. So
would you lift the seat up when you peed, or would you leave it down?
I would. They had a urinal, so there were two bathrooms too. So it was crazy because I remember I was warming up and I was still a little bit nervous because I hadn't had a UFC win yet, and I'm fighting UFC again. And I remember warming up with Saul Solis. Saul was in my corner for this one, and I remember looking at Saul. I was like, "Man, Saul, I think I'm gonna throw up." And he's like, "Well, go throw up then." And I was like, "Yeah." And then I run to the bathroom. It's a little bit down the hall. And I as soon as I get to the dressing room door where everybody is, I'm like I start feeling like it's gonna happen. And then I go to one bathroom door and it's locked. And I'm like, fuck. But the next bathroom, I know there's a toilet and a urinal. And I'm like, if this door is not locked and I go in there, if someone's in there, I'm going to they're at the urinal, I'm going to the toilet. If they're at the toilet, I'm going to the urinal. But like as soon as I put my hand on the door, I start throwing up. And as soon as I open the door, I projectile vomit, probably like 6 to 8 feet across the room. And all over the toilet and the back of the toilet and whatever. So like I didn't lift the seat, you know.
To answer your question.
And then I went back out, warmed up, and I have this fight. And Pierini, I was like, I knew I was gonna win this fight. I knew I was gonna win this fight 2 days before because we had to go to the doctor for to get our physical. We both hadn't gotten the physical that they needed in Vegas, right? So they sent us the same time together. Okay, fine. And you know, Chris, sometimes when they want you to do the jumping jacks and then check your heart rate,
yeah,
like when he was doing jumping jacks, he was really uncoordinated. And when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, I'm fucking this dude."
I got this dude. Yeah,
like, yeah, I was like, "I'm gonna fuck this dude up." Like that was my thing. And then going out into the fight, I drop him with that head kick. He lands on his shoulder. He dislocates his shoulder. That's probably again attributed to his lack of coordination. And no, it was awesome, man. Like it was the first time I went backstage, and I don't know if you won your UFC debut, Chris, but backstage. And isn't it nice the first time you get 2 checks?
Oh yes.
Oh,
what is the second one?
Like it's like, yes. Oh yeah, it's like there's 2 of these things, and the guy that gives you the checks, I forget his
they
name.
match.
But like it's like it's awesome. Like it's really nice because the first check always has like some of your medicals or something taken out of it, but the second check is the one that you agreed on. Like
pure total, yeah.
Yeah, it's a total. So that was dope. That was the beginning of like me recognizing like this is where I belong, man. This is my house.
Okay,
so hold on real quick. At this point, are you understanding the weight cut and everything? Is that gotten easier for you? Because you're out there running, you're doing it the proper way now.
Yeah, the weight cut was definitely like I had that down to a science then. Which fight was the Uno fight? That was when I really, really got it, you know.
Okay.
I remember I was cutting weight one night. I was working in my gym. I was super hard. I did this thing, I call it the famous weight cutting drill. And so what I would do is I would do 5 rounds on every station in my gym. I do 5 rounds of shadow boxing, 5 rounds of double end bag, 5 rounds jumping rope, 5 rounds on the speed bag, and 5 rounds on the heavy bag, right? And then
Are these 5-minute rounds?
And that's your warm up, and then you work out
4 more.
These 5-minute rounds?
I'm sorry.
5-minute rounds?
No, these are 3-minute rounds though.
Okay.
But I'm doing them in all I'm wearing my sauna suit.
Damn,
right?
dude.
And then I come back around and do 4 more. So I would do 45 rounds, right? So I did that, and
what the hell's wrong with you?
This is I would do this for like every other day for about 3 weeks out from the fight, right? And I remember doing that one night and telling my friend, man, I left the gym. I didn't leave the gym last night until 160. And he was like, in the morning? I was like, no, dude, that would be 2 o'clock. Like,
What? Yeah.
Right?
Texas. Math.
So, right. So like I would get down to I started making weight. I would be like 157 after workouts, like 2 weeks out from a fight.
Right there.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right there. And you condition yourself. You're conditioning yourself.
And for people who've never, experienced it or just fans and stuff that's sitting, I mean, the weight cut is so intense. I remember one time with Yves, where Yves weighed in, made 155. This was in New Jersey. Then went like off to the corner, had a couple of sips of water, ate an apple, and I put him on the scale, and he was like 160 something, 160, 161 right there. Like he had just blown back up immediately. Like it didn't scientifically even make sense to me. You know what I mean? But do you remember that? I mean,
yeah, I do remember that.
Intense.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So Yves, I got a question. You say you threw up then. Was that common for you? Because I never once threw up before a fight, but probably for the last 15 fights, every fight afterwards, within 45 minutes to 2 hours, I'd throw up after every fight. Did you always throw up before, after? Very rarely. How was that for you?
Very rare, man. In my lifetime, I only remember ever throwing up 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Damn.
Like I really
you don't drink enough, bro.
Yeah, no. Like I seriously think like Pete Spratt and I we had some Italian the day before, and I think it had something to do with how much of it I ate and how fast I ate it.
Okay. So when you were doing your walkout, you've got Tito Ortiz with you again. You got Sean Solis. And when I saw Joao walk out with Eugene Jackson, because Eugene was, he was just murking people left and right. I thought, like you were saying, you saw him do jumping jacks. You knew he was uncoordinated. I see somebody walk out with Eugene Jackson. I'm like, man, this guy could probably punch. But, you quickly put an end to, that thought that I had at that moment.
Yeah, not with those jumping jacks. He couldn't.
No. So Miguel, you bring him in September 7th, 2002 for another hook and shoot event. Do you recall are you looking at his record? You are. You had him fight Kohei Yasumi, Shudo mainstay.
Yeah, what I was trying to look at is, he mentioned he had a 4-fight deal with the UFC, and this is still early on in the Zuffa days, where he may actually have had a UFC contract and had permission to come to our fight. I don't remember those types of details on this particular fight, but it still wasn't out of the realm of possibility. Like now you just don't have any shot at getting a UFC guy to come, get us an extra fight in for himself or to help you out or whatever. But back then it was that. And, Yves at this point was a international guy. You bring in international opponents, and our show had grown, so we could do it. It made sense.
Was at 170 pounds, and you need to remember. I got 170 here. No, you were the 170-pound hook and shoot champ.
I was the champ at 170.
I apologize. Yeah, that's what they said in the beginning.
55. So
Yasumi is 5 wins, 1 loss, 2 draws, and Yves, you're kind of on fire right now, but this guy's got a pretty big reputation over in Shudo. And what happened with you in regards to in Hawaii, you kind of did the Yasumi in Evansville when you knocked him out in 45 seconds.
I just knew what he was gonna do. Like I remember that fight. I remember I'm like I wonder if some of these things are unique to me, but I'm like they can't be, right? So Chris, I'm sure you had those fights where you're just like, this is what he's gonna do. Like it's like you can tell the future. You know what I mean? So like everything that he was going to do, I knew what was coming. Like before, like not like in his motion or like in his setup. It was kind of like I could see in his eyes. I could see what he was thinking. You know, so there was nothing that he was going to be able to do to stop me.
He did everything is less than a minute. So, I mean, it wasn't like it's a whole book you had to read. I mean, it was just one or two exchanges, and it was kind of good night, Irene.
Yeah, it was like I knew what he was going to do. So, like, it was like you're not going to be able to do that. You know,
I think it's fights like that when you have those. That's the stuff you have when you, like you say, you're in such a zone and you know everything that's coming. That's when you get the true belief that you are the greatest fighter in the world, that weight class. And that's what I've talked to Mike about this, how you have to be able to lose and come right back and be delusional. The fact, like, I can beat anybody tonight in the world. Cause when you've been in that zone and you go, I can do this. Like, you don't feel it every night, but when you feel it, you know you can beat anybody in the world at that point. And that's when everything's hitting on all cylinders and everything, the stars have lined up or whatever it is. But when you know everything that's going to happen, you feel like nobody in the world could beat me. And that's what you experience that night.
Yep. I agree 100%. That's exactly what that felt like.
To give you just a tinge more of the hook and shoot connection there with just that. He had just beaten Matamoros, another one of my guys, in Japan. And so, Matamoros is a certain place in my heart and in my pecking order, and he beat him. So, he gets the upgrade, and that's what he got in Evansville, I guess.
I love Henry, man. I just remember being with Henry at one point in Evansville. We were driving somewhere, and he was talking about Shorty Carter. He was like, he has this big cup, this chalice, and he's like, Shorty Carter's a big, and he's talking to this girl, and like, she has this big fupa. You know what a fupa is? I was like, no. That's what I learned what a fupa was, but the way he said it, it was so funny. Oh man, I love that guy.
Yeah. So think about how nuts his record is, because Matamoros is Miguel's guy. I mean, he's like, a 500 fighter that Miguel knows every single thing about. And it's almost as if I have to bring up Matamoros whenever he's on a record, but you've got so much in your background. It's hard. We broke the 2-hour mark. I got 6 fights left and some random questions. Are you cool? Because I know you got a kid.
I hear her crying, but her mom's with her. So.
Okay. I'm going to keep going. And if you've got to go, I get it. We're going to take you up towards the Josh Thompson, and then we're going to save the Euphoria MFC Pride Days for part 2, if you don't mind.
Word. Let's do it.
Okay. So we got Rich Clemente, UFC 41. That is a hard fight. No love, Rich Clemente. What were your feelings going into this?
So he'd fought Pete Spratt down in Houma, Louisiana a couple months or years prior, right? And Pete was one of my boys, and I cornered Pete for that fight.
Yeah, you gotta get closer to your microphone.
Sorry. I said he fought Pete Spratt a couple months or years prior to that, and Pete's one of my boys, and I cornered Pete for that fight. And I remember after that fight, he moved down to 155. So when he signed that contract to fight me, I remember telling everybody, I was like, Pete made him go to 155. I'm gonna make him go to 145. Like, I don't care about Rich. And I just remember thinking, like, he's from Louisiana, I'm from Texas. They're flying us all the way to New Jersey to fight. Like, we could have done this in like Beaumont or something.
Yeah.
But here's a fun true story that I got from Dan Lambert. Dan Lambert told me about that fight, and I won't use any names. You guys get, like, anybody else who just Google the names or find it out themselves. But he was sitting next to Clemente's manager, and he's like, "Oh man, this guy he beats up this other southpaw in the gym who was a former world champion all the time." Like he put him in the hospital, you know, like this fight's going to pay for my pool. It's going to.
He's telling you this.
He's telling this to Dan Lambert in the stands the night of the fight, right?
Okay.
As me and Clemente are walking into the cage, he's telling Dan Lambert that this fight is going to pay for his pool, right?
He better be getting a baby pool or one of those.
Yeah.
What's he talking about?
So when the third round comes up, Dan says, he looks at him and goes, "How's that pool looking?"
No.
Like the fight with Rich Clemente, like he said, like in the pre-fight interviews, like if you watch the, you know how they would interview us prior to the fight and then talk, you know, show the videos. Like the guy who was interviewing me, he said his stand-up is his stand-up is, you know, just as good as yours or whatever, right? My response to that in the video, because I literally just watched this a couple months ago, I go, yeah, so he says his stand-up is like just as good as mine, and no, like, that offends me. So, like that was my point in this fight. I was like, I was gonna make this fight happen on our feet, and anytime he would like try to pull guard or whatever, I would just pull out and back him up. And like in my head, I'm like, no, you said your stand-up is as good as mine. Let's go, get the fuck up, you know. So
Did you say that to him during the bout?
I backed out one time and I was like, let's go. You say you're good as me. Let's go. I did do that to him one time.
Yeah, I know you said something. I wasn't sure what it was. Okay.
But like there was a point too in this fight where like he had me on my back with my arm trapped. He was in my guard and he had my arm trapped behind my back. You know, that one position that you would love to get. Yeah. And like he was able to do nothing from there. He had me there for probably about 2 minutes. I was able to reverse him in like the last 40 seconds of the round and take the round, you know, like, I felt like I was on. And at that point, like, I was just like, there's nobody in this organization who's going to beat me. That's for sure. You know?
So Clemente had Jeremy Horn, Jens Pulver, Matt Hughes, and Monte Cox. Monte Cox walked him out, but went to his seats. And you had Rico Rodriguez, Pete Spread, Carlo Prater. So Rico Rodriguez was doing the whole Tim Sylvia thing at the time. He was wearing his UFC belt everywhere. And cornering you wearing a belt. And the thing about Clemente is he started fighting at 220 pounds. Gets in phenomenal shape. And as Yves had mentioned earlier, fights Pete Spratt, one of his boys. Didn't go well. He comes down to 55. And in the corners, you hear Rich complaining, he's just too strong. I can't do anything with him. He's too strong. I think sometimes when you're dealing with like extreme weight cuts, you eventually hit like the governor where you lose your strength. And I think he realized it against you that day.
He realized something because I wasn't about to let him do anything that he wanted to do. Also, where that strength is concerned, it's like there's so much strength in technique. You know what I mean? And I felt my technique was better, man. Anything that he wanted to do, especially when it came to wrestling, it wasn't like my wrestling was great or whatever, but I've always had this instinctive thing about balance and keeping my hips. So I'm sure that was something for him that became a problem between the weight cut and my good balance. It was one of those things for him. Couldn't do anything about it. I remember Rico just won the title, and man, I was a huge boxing fan, and Felix Trinidad was there with
Tito,
or not, right? And Rico and I always shared the same locker room. And after my fight, Trinidad comes back, you know, to see Rico, and he looks at me, and Tito didn't speak much English, so he sees me and he goes, "You, my friend." I was so pumped, bro. Like this is right after the Fernando Vargas fight, and Tito Trinidad was one of my favorite boxers. This is another one of those moments where this guy, one of these guys who I like, not like somebody I'm like, oh, he's cool and I like him. No, Trinidad was like one of my favorites, you know?
Yeah.
And I was hurt when he lost to Bernard Hopkins, you know what I mean? But this guy just like complimented me on my skills. Like this guy who I've been looking up to for a while. Like I was a hardcore boxing fan. I watched a lot of boxing because of Lewis, you know, like it helped me. Chris will tell you, like the more fights you watch, the more high level good fights you watch. There's these little things you instinctually pick up, you know. And like Trinidad was one of those guys they picked up stuff from. So for him to give me some props like that, I was just like, I was in hog heaven again, man. It was like, I just felt like, yeah, this is it, man. They nobody's gonna beat me. I don't care if you 155 pounds, 170 pounds, 205 pounds, I'm gonna beat everybody's ass.
Speaking of hog heaven, there are people in Iowa who are grateful you prevented Monty from getting a pool.
So
Wow.
we had talked about at this point in your career. I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to keep pushing forward. Please notice the professionalism on my end. So you had talked about there was a mental block with black belts in jiu-jitsu in your past. Your next fight is at UFC 43, where they throw you in a fourth placer over at the ADCC that includes a win over Haben Gracie. And that's Eddie Ruiz, who claims he's a Tank Abbott protege. And they probably got more of the same attitude than they do skill set, but he was a legit submission grappler.
I didn't know that. Maybe I knew that at the time and I forgot that information because like that was never a threat. But like this dude said he was gonna take my soul. Like I remember that. I remember Eddie Ruiz said he was gonna take my soul. Well, I have no soul, Mike.
That's what I would have came back with. Too late. Already been done. Too late.
Gone. Yeah, I went through a divorce. My soul left.
Yeah, it was one of those things, man. It was it's kind of crazy that fight. That was unfortunately I didn't fight to finish that guy. I was kind of playing with my food. I was playing with my food. You know what I mean?
Dude,
I felt like everything I was doing was working for me. So I was just like, I'll just keep doing this. At one point, I did have him in a triangle, and Tim Crater was one of my training partners, and he taught me this, what he calls the hateful triangle, where when you get the triangle on, when a guy tries to stand up on you, you take your foot and you hook it inside his thigh. So now he can't stand up, but like you're both trapped there, you know, and he's going to get choked. So I was trying to put that hateful triangle on him, but I had the position, but he just I should have just pulled on his head and finished it the traditional way. But like trying to get to that, I left a little bit of space and he was able to slide out the back door. And then we ended up fighting for like another 5, 6, 7 minutes. And I just beat him up for another.
There was a 2-round fight. Am I correct?
No, it was 5.
Was it?
I'm sorry, 3 rounds. 3
5-minute rounds?
Yeah.
Because he took world-class punishment in that second round. Like it was, I mean, you're saying you really were just kind of playing with your food. Man, that dude was tough. Eddie Ruiz, whatever you think of him as a person, he looks like he just got out of prison. Obviously had some skill set. And the punishment that guy took, I'd say about 90% of that locker room probably wouldn't have came out for that third round.
I kicked him in the face. There's one point where I kick him in the face, and it sounds like a baseball bat hit somebody in the home run.
Yeah.
And the only problem though is like I remember thinking right before landing that kick, I was like, this isn't gonna land. I pulled it a little bit. I should have ran through his head.
Hey, I'll give a little bit of props to Eddie Ruiz. He's a little guy who ran with Tank Abbott and stuff, and had some wrestling in his background more than anything else. Real strong. He did compete in Abu Dhabi. I'll tell you something funny. Him and his partner, Paul Herrera rather. They ordered 75. They drank 75 beers and charged him to Hayato Sakurai's room.
I respect that at least. That's funny.
That's a true story. But Eddie Ruiz was Tank Abbott's little guy, and he was the most loyal of that crew. He was a guy who would fight anybody, and maybe like a Bob Schreiber, like one of those guys, a much better fighter in the street than in the ring. That's the kind of props for that guy.
Eddie Ruiz, I can assure you, like if you're on a prison yard, that's first team All-American. First team All-American, hands down, multiple MVPs on All-Star games. That's the guy you want. Just a personal opinion. So from there, you had talked about wanting to go to Japan. Japan. It's a reoccurring theme that we've heard come out of your mouth up until this point. You get your opportunity to fight in Yokohama, Japan, in Shudo, August 10, 2003, against Tatsuya Kawajiri.
Yep.
Kawajiri. And they kind of had your number.
Yeah. So that was when, but that's one of those things that like you said, and I didn't address it early enough in my career. Wrestling, all that guy wanted to do was wrestle me and take me down, and hold me down. He wasn't trying to pass. He wasn't trying to do anything.
Uno did the same thing to you. Uno did the same thing. They would hold you, pin you, steal positioning, let the time run off the clock, and then just go, yes, I won. Yeah. Oh, it's hard to watch.
Except Uno would try to pass and try to finish. This guy, he was content to sit in my guard and post on my biceps, and I remember saying to somebody after that fight, I was like, that guy's gonna be a Shudo champion. They like because I felt like there was so many times. One thing that I was really good at, if I couldn't get up from beneath you, I could tie you up and stall this thing out and make the ref stand us up. And I would stall him out and they would do nothing. So I was like, yeah, they don't want this. They don't want him to take any risks, How
hard was that to walk back to the locker room? And there's no way, that's not a satisfying win, and it's a loss that hurts even more.
Yeah, the reason why it hurt, I felt it hurt, is like, because I felt like this wasn't a fight. This was a business.
No.
And not him. Like, I don't think he's in on it. You know what I mean? I think that's just for him. That's the smartest, safest fight. Right? So he's going to fight that fight. He's the better wrestler. He was strong as shit. And so if he could get me down, he could lock up my hips and control my biceps. And that's it. And if that's all he has to do to win, then I'm going to do that 3 times and make it work, So for me, it's like these guys, I felt like these guys are using my rep to build their own guy. And I was really upset with that, and I was like, I really felt like fuck Shudo at that point.
Yeah, and it stung. It's more of just a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
Well, they bring you back to UFC at UFC 45. You're supposed to fight Din Thomas, Chris, that's one of your favorite guys. And Din pulls off the card 10 days prior. So then they call Miguel's buddy, Dave Strasser, and they fill it with Nick Agallar, who at this point in his career, he'd never been tested. He beat everybody. I saw him fight regionally a bunch of times prior to this. Dude, Nick Agallar, if there were betting odds on this fight, because he was taking it last minute, like the odds I think would have been juicy on his side. I may have thrown money on it based on him never being pushed locally, and you're fighting a different fighter. Din is a stand-up guy. Nick's a wrestler. I just thought it was kind of a recipe to where it would give you trouble, and it didn't happen.
Because you didn't know my philosophy, so you would have lost money, right? But
yeah, for sure.
Here's the thing. Here's my thing. This is how I still look at it this way. If I was fighting Marcelo Garcia, like, I don't care. When I train my jiu-jitsu, I'm training like I'm fighting Marcelo Garcia. But when I'm training my kickboxing, I'm training like I'm fighting Joe Schilling or whoever the best kickboxer in the world is. Like whatever part of the fight that we're in, I want to be ready for the best guy in the world at that. So fighting Dean and fighting somebody else doesn't matter. I don't care what your skill set is. Yeah, I might watch some tape and see what your tendencies are, but like that, none of that matters. Like I want to take away like the big tendencies that you present, but otherwise I just want to improve my skills to where like it doesn't matter where this fight happens. I'm going to beat you, or I'm going to find a way to make this fight happen where you can't beat me. That was my goal.
One of, like, to counter what you're saying is, and this is me armchair quarterbacking, obviously, who gives a shit? But at this point, you've got two boxing coaches. You got Sean Solis and Lewis Wood in your corner. And from my perspective, I'm sitting here thinking you got two boxing coaches. You get two head boxing coaches when there can really only be one. Like when you've got a gym, there's a head coach and that's it. And you got two head coaches of the same discipline in your corner. Was that difficult for you? Did it create confusion?
At times, yes. Like they clashed a little bit sometimes.
They had to have.
Yeah. And so sometimes it wasn't a whole lot of fun. I feel like maybe you can't see it because you don't know the backstory or you weren't there for some of it, but I feel like you could see some of that, especially in this fight in the corner.
For sure.
No,
they're probably arguing to get in the cage with you. No, it's the only reason I know this is because I know the game. I've been around it forever and I can see it. And I'm like, those are two very strong-minded individuals with systems that are probably similar, but they're not the same. But they both have opinions and they're both right.
So the difference is that, one of them, so Saul was a mixed martial arts guy. He's a kickboxer, Muay Thai, and he understood mixed martial arts. Lewis was a kickboxer, boxer. So
pure boxer.
Didn't understand the ground much at all. But like, I think if you think now that you know there was some tension there, if you go back and watch that specific fight, because that fight goes into the second round, I feel like you get to see you get to see a little bit of the clash there,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
In that round break, there was a little bit of you could see the little bit of back and forth between them.
Okay, so here, now you're at a fork in the road. What makes you go the Sean Solis direction rather than sticking with Lewis Wood, if you don't mind answering that question?
I do know the answer to that question. It gets into some personal stuff, not personal for me, but like I don't want to put them on blast like that.
No, and you shouldn't. If it was just a better fit for you at that time, but then that's what it is.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's cool. Let me ask you a question though with Agallar, because as Mike said, Agallar was one of my guys. I worked with him a lot, and I worked with his coach Strasser a lot, and he was like a poster boy kind of guy. He was the kind of guy who checked off a lot of boxes, like Mike said. But you broke him in that match. Did you feel that? Did you feel at some point, all right, I mean, before all that stuff, actually in the fight, because he was confident going in too, right? So I don't know. How was the actual fight?
I don't know if he touched me. I don't know if he hit me with anything significant whatsoever.
He was scared.
And
pretty one-sided.
Yeah, it was kind of a beating. I think initially he wanted to be in there, and when he realized, I was too fast for him, and when he realized that he couldn't get to me the way he thought he would be able to, when he realized that he couldn't take me down, he couldn't close the distance on me, like that changed everything for him. And I dropped him with that Superman, and he just kind of covered up. Like I think when he went down to a punch, like he was like, I don't want this anymore. Either it was like I don't want this anymore, or I know it's over. Because what am I gonna do? Nothing has worked so far. I don't think he's thinking, I'm gonna reverse this guy and get on top. You know what I mean? Like,
but it was all nervous shots too. Like it was all
weird
angles, nervous shots,
jittery. Like when I watch the tape now, I can even imagine it. Like after, because I've seen it enough times. Like I feel like he was real jittery coming at me. No confidence in any of his movements. Meanwhile, like all of my movement had confidence. I'm throwing kicks to his body.
I felt like that was one where you could just tell the different, you'd been there many times. And like we said, he was a Midwest guy who was doing well and walking through people. there's different levels of this stuff, and you've been at that level, and all of a sudden he's like, man, you know, when it's easy, it's easy. You know, when things are working, everything's going well, this is great. All of a sudden you deal with adversity, like, the hell's this, man? I'm not used to this stuff. You'd already dealt with that. You'd been there. I think he mentally broke right there. And I remember watching, I was like, ooh, shit, you know, because I'd kind of been more fight on the Midwest in Japan. It was my first time back with UFC at that time. It was UFC 45.
That was you and Robbie, right?
Yeah, me and Robbie Long.
Yeah, I remember that fight. Yeah, that was a good night, man.
It's fun.
So as a side note, this is just like some stuff with me and my boys. After that fight, one of my boys is there. He used to try to come to as many fights as he could. Anyway, he was a huge Don Fry fan, and that's when they had the inaugural Hall of Fame, right? So after my fight, actually, you were fighting. This is when you and Robbie were fighting. I was sitting next to Don Fry, and I was like, hey, Mr. Fry, my buddy, he's a huge Don Fry fan, man. If I get him over here, will you sign an autograph for him, take a picture with him? And he's like, for you, Eve, yeah, I'll do that for you, man. And then I go and get him, and I bring my buddy back, and I was like, hey, Mr. Fry, this is my boy. And he goes, hey, I heard you want to suck my dick.
That's good. Hey.
And he grabs him by his jeans and pulls him close, and he signs his jeans.
That's embarrassing.
And my boy Dickie still has those jeans, man. He didn't know. He still has those. He fucking framed those things. He's a huge Don Fry fan. But he's also side note. One time I was I'm in Japan. And he works for ConocoPhillips, you know, and he's doing something for them in Singapore, right around the time of my fight in Japan. So he's like, hey man, if I make it to Japan, can I come to you? I was like, yeah, you come. If you be in the corner, you can come. Like, you're my boy, right? Yeah. So he gets to Japan. He's like, but I'll just be there for that night. So you stay in my room. I'm leaving early that morning, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we get there. He gets there with me a couple of days early. And Phil Baroni goes, oh, by the way, Dickie, my boy Brian, he loved Vanderlei Silva at the time. This is when Vanderlei was over in Pride and he was murdering everybody, right? So Phil Baroni's like, man, I'd love to fight Vanderlei. Dickie's like, dude, Vanderlei would smoke you.
Yikes.
That's how you get into a fist fight, man.
Yeah, Phil's kind of, nuts. I bet that didn't go over well.
You can't beat Vanderlei. He said that.
I bet Phil's head blew up, didn't he? Like short circuit wires were going on.
Did you see like the really color of Phil's face change?
Really weird because I think Phil, like, because Phil and I always had a good relationship, and he knew he was with me, so I feel like he kind of gave him a pass because he was with me, but he didn't like giving him a pass. Yeah, really uncomfortable. Yeah. But like we went out and had fun in Roppongi that night. We went back and I left. Roppongi. Right, and I left him in the bed. I left him in the room. When I was leaving the room, I was like, "All right, bro, I'm gonna chill. Just sleep until you gotta go. I'm gonna leave now." And he's like, "All right, cool." And then he passes out because he had a lot of drink. I can sleep. He's like, "I'll stab Phil Baroni in the fucking face." He says this in his sleep.
Hey, didn't you love about going to Japan? It's like you go out to Roppongi. And then you like get back when the subway starts again at like 7 in the morning. Then you're like, oh, I got to go straight to the airport, dude. It was awesome, dude. Every time.
Every single time. Go to Gas Panic. Go down there.
Love it. Gas Panic.
Love it. So your coming out party is this next bout. And it's UFC 47. You fight Hermès Franca. And Hermès Franca at this time is 8-1. And he's just on a roll. One, his fighting style is incredibly entertaining. He's black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he hits hard. It's a little unorthodox, but he hits hard. So he's coming in at 8-1. Right now, you're 22-8-1, and you're also on that roll. And it appears that it's almost like an eliminator for a title bout.
Yeah. Yeah. And like Hermes, man, like you said, he hits hard and he's awkward. Like, he's built weird. Like, his ranges, his distance is awkward. Like, he can reach you from, like, his arms are long. Yeah. You know what I mean? Than his torso. Yeah, he was, but like, he was a black belt. Like, this is the black belt. Like, I didn't know Eddie Ruiz was that level of guy. But like Hermès Franca was another black belt, and he beat Uno, who I lost to, and I'm like, that was a different guy. I wasn't who I am today. Like, and I don't care about your black belt. Like I fought Matt Serra already. Matt Serra had my back. He couldn't finish me, you know. I knew Uno was that level of guy. So I was like, that whole black belt myth was gone for me.
Gone. Yeah.
But that fight was tough, man. There was some scenarios. I think I threw a submission at him at one point. You know, I that's how confident I was in my ground game. And then we got into that 50-50 position, leg locks. And there was one point in there I was like, oh, okay, that's a little bit threatening. I'm just going to roll out of this. I think he got to the heel hook, and I was just like, I was going to alligator roll and beat him, because I was like, there's no way he's going to be as fast as me. I don't care what position we're in. He's not going to be as fast as me. But another thing too for that fight, like I'm going into that fight and I'm focused. I'm in the checkpoint area, getting my gloves checked, mouthpiece cup, and then Bas walks by right then, and he goes, "Hey," like he just like, "Hey, it's good to see you here, man. I didn't know you're gonna be here. All right, I'm going to my seat." That's kind of like how Bas rolled up. And I was like, "Oh shit, it's Bas. Cool, man. Thank you." And he's like, he tells me, good luck, go get him. And I'm like, "Fuck, Bas is here." And he like, "Yeah, awesome. All right, get back in the zone." Like that. That's where my head was, And then go out there and have that fight with Hermès, man. And like, I it was good. Like I'm undefeated against pedophiles.
Damn. So the first round, it's a stand-up round. Yves Edwards, like I'm scoring it. I'm like, here, 2 weeks ago, I'm scoring this fight. So I'm like, okay, all right, he's got that one. Second round, it's all on the ground. Hermès gets a takedown. I got to give it to Franca, but I also noticed he's going for leg locks. And usually when guys like that Franca type of guys, when they go for leg locks, it's because they're getting tired. And that's what happens. So the third round, Hermès is constantly trying to pull guard. And I believe what won you that fight was your cardio. That cardio. I mean, outside of skill set, obviously. What really helped kind of push past was how in shape you were.
Yeah, the weight cut was different for me then. Like I was making this is something I changed over time, and I shouldn't have done so. Like I was making weight, like I said, 2 weeks out.
Damn.
It was. I think that was something, especially in that time for the sport. Like guys weren't that huge. Like some of these lightweights today, like they're just like it's ridiculous how fucking big they are. But back then, I think that was something like why Frankie was so durable. He wasn't putting his body through that huge weight cut over that short period of time. So I would I feel like changing that had a little bit of effect on me later on. I had a different philosophy down the road, but at the same time, man, like my cardio was so on point back then. There was like, you couldn't get me there's nothing you could do. Like that was the same attitude I had when I was telling Miguel, like I want to fight on the early card, defend one belt, and then go win another belt later on. Cause that's how I felt about my cardio. I was like, I'm not going to get tired. The things that I was doing in the gym, things I was doing at home, like I'm not going to get tired. And then I learned how to recognize that moment. Because I screwed that up at one point later, and we'll come to that later on, I'm sure. But Chris, that moment when you, after the first scramble, and then you feel your chest, you feel it, and you're like, fuck, I'm breathing hard, right?
Yeah.
Like, for me, I learned that when I see that, or when I hit that moment, it's like, if I say to myself, yeah, you're supposed to be breathing hard. You're in a fight. Like, you can prepare for this, right? So we're good to go. When I recognize that and I do that, then I forget about it, and then I'm not breathing hard ever again.
Yeah,
like, it's just what it is. And that I was in supreme control of that at that point in my career, man. Like there was no way anybody was going to gas me.
Okay, so we're going to close this.
Me to do the Kawajiri thing, to hold me down. That was it.
It's hard to watch because when I watch Kawajiri, I'm yelling, get up, and it's, I don't know, it's not fun for anybody. It's not fun for him. It's not fun for you. It's not fun for the fans. We're going to close out with Josh Thompson. That's UFC 49. And Yves, I got to have you back for the rest. I mean, we got pre-UFC 50 and before. And in our next interview, I'm going to be taking some fights from before, which we shouldn't have ignored. But, you know, we got a crazy amount of time out of you already. So Josh Thompson. So Josh Thompson comes into this event 24-1. Yves 23-8-1. But the overwhelming majority of his losses were from years ago. And, you know, some of them outside of this weight class. Going into this fight, it was to me as a fan sitting on a couch, I'm sitting here going, I mean, it was a Super Bowl. I'm like, I can't believe this. These, without a question of a doubt, are the two best 155ers in the entire world. And we get to see them collide. And, why don't you bring us through that fight, because it lived up to my expectations.
Yeah, that fight was a lot of fun, man. After fighting Hermès Franca, I had one fight in between. Again, you know, I fought in the WEC. I fought this guy named Deshaun Johnson, and Josh Thompson was there. You know, Dana and Chuck were there together. Josh Thompson was there, I think. Oh, he was there because Mike Swick was on that card. And I'm in this fight with this guy, and I throw this kick at this guy's head, and he ducks, and I kick the corner post. Like, I kick the post hard, like you can hear it. And Dana and Chuck are like pointing at, and I see them the moment it happens, you know? And like, I'm just like, I just feel like I'm the best guy in the world and nothing's going to stop me. And Josh is there that night, and I know Josh is there, and I know, like, we're the guys to fight for that vacant belt. I know that, you know? And so I want to, like, kind of intimidate him too, you know? I want to beat the shit out of this guy, but I don't even want to finish this guy. I just want to beat him up and just show you that you can't touch me. Like, you think you're going to be able to deal with this? And after the fight, Josh was like he enjoyed watching it, he claims, you know? And he's like, let's go put on a show. So I was like, oh, he thinks this is going to be sweet. You know what I mean? That's how I'm thinking about this. And then the fight, we signed the fight. The fight happens. It's fight week. And I hear there's this round table. Ryan Bennett puts this round table together. And everybody except Ryan Bennett picks Josh to win this fight. You know? And I'm like, and I hear about it prior to that. And I'm like, fuck all you guys.
Who was on the round table? I
don't remember everybody, but I know Frank Trigg was on it. And
okay.
I actually ran into Trigg before the fight, and I asked him about it, and he was like, yeah, I picked Thompson to win. And I was like this back then too. I didn't like Frank because he, like, you remember that cocky Frank Trigg?
Oh, yeah.
I fucking hated that guy. We came up in the same area together too.
Yeah.
But then the fight with Josh, man. I never, like, when I watch it on tape and people, and then Joe Rogan is talking about how much bigger Josh looks than me. I see it on tape. In there, I didn't think or feel it, you know? But god damn, that dude was fucking strong. And he was doing some weird shit, like that heel kick, he was doing that standing heel kick to, like, my calf and my thigh. That was miserable. That hurt. Like, I hated that. It was pissing me off. And then he, like I said, he was just so strong, man. Everything I did, he had an answer to. There was one point where he pulls guard. I was like, "Motherfucker, you want to pull guard on me?" So I tried to stack him up on the fence. I didn't let us go to the ground. I caught him, and I put him on the fence, and I just started throwing some shots. He didn't like that, so he, like, pushed out of it and got back to his feet so easily. Because, like I said, like, he was, like, super strong. He felt really strong to me. Then I got to his back. He's a better wrestler. I try to return him. Didn't go my way. But as we come up, I'm like, all right, man, this is the game you want to play. We're going to play this game. I'm going to kick you. I'm throwing this kick to your head. And because usually on breaks, I would teach all my guys in the gym, my gym, I off of breaks that you initiate yourself where the ref isn't stepping in, throw a hard leg kick. A lot of people aren't conscious of leg kicks off of breaks, right? So, and then you do that enough times, then go to the head. But I was like, all right, motherfucker, I'm throwing this kick to your head. I don't care if you block, I'm breaking your arm. I'm putting everything into this kick. And I push him off, and he throws a spinning back fist, and it just lines up perfectly. And as he does, that just kick comes around and lands right in his neck. And like, if he would have blocked it, I think I would have broken his arm. That's why I left my feet. I didn't leave my feet intentionally. Just the kick like pulled it out from under me. And but I caught him straight in the neck. So it was one of those things where it's like, you're going out, but you're not unconscious. So he was kind of like, there's like a shot to it's like a body shot almost, you know?
Couldn't move his arms. He was just stuck.
And I'm just punching him in the face. And I land like 4 or 5 good ones, like solid punches. And I'm like, he's out. But I'm just going to keep punching until the ref pulls me off. And then I just start like basketballing his head off of my knuckles. But like, yeah, man, I knew what that fight was because like watching his fight with Hermès, you know, watching his fight with Crunkleton, like I knew this was going to be a tough one. It was not going to be easy. But like, I was in that moment where I was like, there's nobody in the world that could beat me. I don't care how big or how strong you are. I'm going to find a way. And then when I got in there with him, like he was awkward. You know, some of the techniques he was using, and then his strength. He was a much better wrestler. He was a better wrestler than I had faced, even though I'd faced some good wrestlers. All they did was double leg and hold you down. He was chain wrestling well. He could go to different things. And like as far as that goes, I didn't even understand what was happening, you know? I just knew I was not going to lose this fight. So I had to do the things. I had to make this fight happen in the moments that I can make it happen. And like that, off of those breaks, that was going to be my thing. I wanted to hurt him, and that kick just landed too clean for him to do anything about it.
I remember I was on, you know, UFC 45, 47, and 49 with you. So I was there with all those fights. And I remember, I think it was after UFC 47, we were doing the press conference and we're talking, and they brought up you, and Josh was there, and they mentioned that fight, and he was saying how he was going to, you know, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, whatever, or let's do this. And you're like, yeah, I'll knock him out. And everybody started laughing, but he said, I'll knock him out. It was just funny. But I remember the build-up for that fight was huge. Biggest thing for 155. So that was awesome when that happened. And, man, just the way you threw that kick, I think people realize, like you said, you kicked so hard, you hit the ground yourself. It wasn't just a kick. Like, both your feet were up off, like you kicked it with everything, man, and you actually hit the ground as you threw the kick. It was pretty awesome.
I didn't remember that on that press conference, but like I do remember that now. Like, I'm sure he was talking a lot of shit because that was Josh. And my thing was just like it doesn't matter. I'm gonna do this. Like, he could say all that shit, but like if you get knocked out, none of that shit matters. So, I'm gonna knock him out.
So for us purists, that was the 55-pound title fight. It really was.
Yeah.
And it made me sad then, and it makes me sad now. To think that you don't have a little 8x10 glossy that you can autograph for people with the UFC belt around your waist, because it's like we took the journey with you. Like, we've seen you every step of the way, leveling up with discipline. You're dedicated. You're doing things that aren't normal, and like, you deserved it. Like, it hurts. Like, it hurts me, and I can't even imagine. You know, if you're a little hollow over that, but man, you're the 155-pound former champion, 100%.
Let me ask you, because, you know, we'll let you close with this because I think Mike's trying to wrap up, but we talked a little bit about how you had a relationship with Joe Silva, and, you know, he likes you. You're a likable guy and stuff like that. What was there like? Right. And so Dana has a feud with Jens, and he does away with the whole division. How do they break that to you? Like, where does the news come to you that they're putting the whole thing on hold, and Dana might like you and it doesn't matter? It's all, you know, how does that whole piece of news, how do you take that?
Well, what was told to me was that, you know, we only have 5 pay-per-views a year. We can't support 5 champions. I don't know how true that is, because you had 5 champions prior to, you know, this fight. But like, yeah, it was a hard pill to swallow, you know, because there's like I've gone to therapy over this shit. Like, I'm not even like I'm not even playing that. This is like, it's like a life dream. I mean, I saw the first UFC and I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. Like, this is when there was no weight classes. I saw Rod Woodson steal his safety, and he's 5'9", 200 and something pounds, and he's jacked. And I'm like, okay, he's just over 200 pounds. I'm like, okay, he's 5'9". I could be 200 pounds too. So I'm like buying weight gainer and lifting weights and going to the gym at at 18 years old, because I'm going to fight in the UFC one day. And then they introduced the 185-pound weight class. And I'm like, okay, I don't have to be that big. Then they introduced 170. And I'm like, okay, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be 170 pounds, And my first fight, me and Matt Serra, we fought as welterweights, but we were both 162 or something like that. Dennis Hallman convinced me to make the cut. But this was my goal, to be a world champion in the UFC. And you get to the top of the mountain, and then it's like, sorry, Mario, but your princess is in another castle.
They moved the goalpost on you, man.
Yeah,
true.
True. That really, unfortunately, mental health and things like that weren't a big.
Did it sour you? Did it sour you to the sport?
It did a little, but it also it fucked with my confidence.
Wow.
And that's that intangible. That's that intangible that that you need. And it's weird because honestly, since then, I'm down to talk about it if you guys want to talk again, but since then you see flashes of it, but I don't think I was the same guy after that. I think you just saw that in flashes. You saw the greatness that exists, but not the consistency.
So Lou Duva used to say, it was a very famous, saying. He's like, when somebody wins a title, even if it's a local regional belt, when they win that title, they get 30% better, and nothing changes physically to them. Everything is exactly the same. It's all mental. And when they get that belt, they push through that mental block, and they become better. And every single little tiny title that you put on, even if it's a BS one, that your student becomes better and better and better. And by you not getting that belt, it seems like what you're saying is that it did the exact opposite to you.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that way. I was proud of myself for what I'd done at that point. I went over to Pride. Well, we can talk about that another time, but there was some, I recognized some things over the next 3 or 4 fights that I recognize it now. I didn't recognize it then. But looking back on it, I recognize my state of mind and what changed for me, what wasn't the same anymore, So yeah, that sucked. And
okay.
Yeah.
All right, so Chris, dude, we're running way late. We got to end it, but Yves, yeah. I've got a whole bunch of other questions for you outside of the fight stuff. We're not doing it tonight. Could I please get you again in a few weeks?
Yeah, we can do this again, man.
Give it a few weeks. Let your old lady, she's going to be pissed about this. Let her get over this, and then we'll do it again, and she'll be mad at you again.
Nah, that's all good. I got a lot of love for Chris and Miguel, and I got love for you, Mike. So yeah.
All right, let me pull us out here. Hey, just want to thank once again all the time Yves gave us. Appreciate, man. What a fun thing to talk about, man. What a great career, and just going through each step by step, understanding. Mike still got more notes.
I got 7 pages of more notes.
Some of them are right. We don't know that we don't know of. Maybe get the right states. Hey, hold on. One question. Did Miguel give you all the money when you fought for him? Because we've had that issue in the past, too.
Yeah. Did he ever take $50 from you?
No, Miguel always paid me in full.
Just kidding, Miguel. Hey, if we need to make it to do another one of those military trips, that shit was fun, dude.
I'm completely down with that. I would like to reach out to the Bahamas military and maybe we can go down there and do it for.
Oh shit, dude! I do that for free. Hey, you should have seen the last time me and Yves went someplace. He couldn't stop telling people about all my failures. It was awesome, dude. Chris failed again and again. I was like, damn, did I win anything?
Meanwhile, I didn't even try.
That shit was hilarious. Hey, I had a blast hanging out with you guys, but that was fun, dude.
That was fun, man. It was so
fun. Thank you.
No sweat, Mike. Thank you, brother.
Let us know when we can do it again. Thank you.
Sure.
Wow, that was a long time we got from him. That was awesome. Really loved hearing about his thoughts and everything. And just like I thought, he's like myself. I don't care who you are. When you in the sport of MMA, especially when an old school guy, your favorite times are those old school wild, wild west days of the sport.
So when a person like Yves comes along and they've got like 80 recorded fights and like another 30 that aren't recorded, you're not like sitting down and buckling down for like one person. You're actually studying for three. So people like Yves are very difficult to really get a good timeline of events on, because here, Chris, he's been ripped off by a promoter. He has. And we couldn't even get to that. And I had it pinpointed, but then I'm like looking at, all right, this is going to be a 3-hour interview, but these are the names we need. And it's just like, it could. On our next one, we're going to start with questions, and then we go into the rest of his career. But that was fantastic. I mean, what a personable guy.
Yeah, the thing, Mike, I'll give you some props, even though maybe you pronounced his name wrong a couple of times. But it's all good, because what I like is when you got a guy with 80 fights, they forgot stuff. So when they go, wow, I forgot about that, or I remembered that and stuff. I know that you've been doing your job, and that's where we're mining gold really here at the podcast. That's the history stuff that we like.
It separates us,
hanging our hats on and stuff. So
it separates us.
And boop, you did it again, man. You got Yves. You got him with that, like, wow, I forgot about that stuff a couple times throughout the interview, and that's all we asked for, man. And yeah, we got to get him back. I feel like I feel like I can talk to these guys like weekly now. It's like, hey, let's do. But yeah, we're short with him, man.
I think one of the difficult things is, all right, well, it's a 3-hour podcast. Well, what are you talking about for 3 hours? We literally could have went another 2. I've got 7 more pages of notes, and I've eliminated things from my notes that I wanted to bring up. And the most telling thing that I took from the interview was he comes out and fights Nick Agallar with 2 head boxing coaches. And he was surprised that we noticed as a podcast, like, that there was a problem there, where it's as plain as day for people in the sport going, you can't do that. And
yeah, he'd never been public about that either. You know what I mean?
No,
that's the kind of thing that he carried with him, and it affected him, in the ring and stuff like that. And you can tell that in the interview. There's a lot of little nuggets like that. So
therapy after not getting a belt. Wow.
And with mental health being such a big thing now, in the news, especially with the Olympics and things, and people really taking a look at what the athletes actually go through in types of pressure. To have the rug pulled out from under you the way he did, with no fault of his own, with everybody telling him to his face that they like him, from Dana to Joe to everybody. But 5 pay-per-views uses the excuse to eliminate the weight class, eliminate the title, and eliminate his legacy. Yeah. I think that I'm glad to hear that he took care of himself, because that's the kind of thing a lot of people might have let slide from our era. And hey, all
right. So let's just say, and I know this podcast is already too long. I was thinking this morning, if I had one thing to say to Dana White, like if I had just had some one-on-one time, Dana's one of us. He's a historian. He's a bring your lunch to work type guy. He takes care of the undercard guys in terms of paying attention to them. I would say just do the right thing, man. Like, give him the belt. It's posthumously. Give him the belt. He won the belt against Josh Thompson, and there's no doubt about that. And anybody with a working retina could see that. The one thing I would say to Dana White is do the right thing with Yves. Do the right thing.
How about some at least maybe throw him in a Hall of Fame? Be like, hey, this was our champ. This was our guy.
I think that would give Yves a little bit of closure as well.
I agree.
Yeah. So good.
With some guys that have a contentious relationship with the UFC and stuff that are hard to work with, you can kind of see why they want to send a message. Why do it with this guy? This guy's like,
everybody likes him.
Yeah, everybody.
So excellent, guys. Please like, share, subscribe. We need help.
Yep.
Like, share, subscribe. Thank you. Check
out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.